Today, I'm honored to introduce you to Jimmy House, a world-class athlete and incredible coach with an extraordinary career in health and fitness. Jimmy's a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu black belt, professional bodybuilder, and a former world record-holding powerlifter, deadlifting over 800 pounds, squatting over 700 pounds. With over 24 years of training experience and 14 years of coaching, he's worked with clients of all ages, and his expertise in strength, mobility, and athletic performance is among the best in the world. Jimmy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's true, right? All that's accurate?
Yeah.
I did my
all
homework?
That's accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
Where'd you find that, by the way?
I did my homework, man. I don't need to divulge my sources.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So just to start off very briefly, who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Jimmy House. As you said, and a lot of the different things that you had talked about are true. But ultimately, my main things now are coaching and professional wrestling. So I started as a young 5-year-old lifting weights in Arizona with my dad. I like that a lot because you talk about fitness for kids. So that's where I feel like you and I actually resonate the most. But that all built to me moving to Austin, Texas 2 years ago to pursue my professional wrestling dreams and then build my coaching business.
I love that, man. And we're going to talk more about training with your father and starting at a young age. What misconceptions do you think people have about you?
Well, there's quite a bit. If I were to go from a ranking of comment hater list, it would probably be like steroid uses first. That's like the main one for a long time. As far as misconceptions go,
People say like you're lying. They think like
yeah, usually the thing.
Which is a good compliment.
Yeah, I think up front is a good compliment, but then after you go like, no, I'm not on steroids, and then people say, no, you are, then it's like calling you a liar. So that's where it's like not really a compliment, but that's been the thing for a while. I've gotten relatively used to that. Other than that, some things I am told, maybe sometimes people think I'm more intimidating or more aggressive than maybe what I come off at after they meet me, that type of thing. But mostly the steroid thing is probably the misconception I hear the most.
Have you ever done blood work to say like, hey, look, here's my blood work? Like,
yeah, I've done the blood work, and then I've done obviously testing for the competitions that I've been a part of. I haven't done that in a few years, but ultimately the blood work is the biggest thing that I use. But the only thing that I talked about more recently is just I've used peptides to help fix my gut from the mold poisoning that I talked to you about, and then also for my most recent knee injury, so BPC 157 and GHK copper are the peptides that I've used. And I also, with the mitochondrial health from the mold poisoning, I've used SLU PP332 in the last like month and a half. So those are like the most that I've gone outside the spectrum of natural supplements or whatever you want to refer to them as. But as far as like anabolics and stuff like that, I've been drug free my entire life.
And the blood work shows that. Like it's very 100%. Clear.
Yeah.
I've used BPC 157 recently, and I've really enjoyed it. I do the oral version. Do you do the injectable?
Yeah, I've been doing the injectable, and it's hard to say because I can't honestly tell you how much I feel or know that it's helping or not. I just know that it was given to me as part of a protocol from the functional medicine doctor that I'm working with. And I just kind of do what she says type of thing. So, but I can't tangibly tell you how much it's working or not in regards to my gut, or even in the past too with my knee injury and stuff like that. It's hard to tell. I like to think that it did help, but as far as how much, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and that's the honest answer. Is like we can't know for sure. But it's like I think it's interesting to try this stuff, especially when you're getting regular blood work, because then you can actually like start to see, okay, so I've introduced this, and then let's over a period of 3, 4, 5 months, whatever, we can see if there's been any change in both how you feel, but also actual objective markers. Right.
And to that point, the thing with the mold poisoning that I told you about earlier in regards to my blood work, some of the levels on there, especially like white blood cell count and stuff like that, are just through the roof, and other levels are dropping. And even though it's accurate to where my body's at now, it's odd to look at because I know it's inaccurate in comparison to what it would have been prior to me getting the mold poisoning. But the problem with that is I wasn't consistent with getting blood work prior to that. So as far as like knowing where I was right before I was exposed to the mold, I'm not entirely sure, just because the mold poisoning in and of itself has adjusted so many different things. So I've seen it change over the course of the last year and a half, going through this detox process, having its ups and downs. But as far as what it was in comparison to my last healthy state, I'm about probably like a year or two off of what that would have been from an accuracy standpoint.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. What's something you used to believe was true, but you no longer do?
one of the common answers that I think you would probably hear or get is just the idea that more is better. And that's been a transition that I made for myself starting at a young age lifting weights. And then at the age of 14, when I started taking over my own training, I was kind of let off the leash for the first time because my dad had pretty much trained me from age 5 up until age 14. And so when I took the training over for myself, it's pretty much let loose in the public gym to kind of do whatever I want, right? So like maxing out on bench first, and then curls, and then pull ups, and then this machine, and then that machine. I remember I would go into the gym and I wouldn't really feel satisfied unless I touched pretty much every single machine for that given body part that I was working that day, that type of thing, you know. And I remember my workouts being legitimately like 3 to 4 hours, and this was before social media or anything else. Wasn't really on my phone playing around all too much. Like I was taking my breaks between sets, but 3 to 4 hours. And this is when I'm like a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. So I had a lot more energy back then. But now being in a coaching role and being exposed to some of the best coaches around in the United States and across the world, I'm starting to see where the meaningful reps really matter the most, but that translates the most to me because I see it how it's a concept that applies to my day-to-day life, where I used to say, like in high school wrestling, any and every single opportunity to get better, I would put myself in that room or in that position to try to learn something, gain something so I can progress myself, which is ultimately a good habit up front to have. But then as I've gotten older, I've started to see the value behind, center reps might be better quality. So for example, when it comes to time, energy, and valuing yourself and where you kind of like spread yourself out, for me, I've learned over the years, instead of trying to hit every single thing that I can, learning what reps are going to be the most high quality and then putting myself in a position to take advantage of those, but then saving time and energy to place in other aspects of life, be it relationships, friendships, pro wrestling versus lifting, or even building my own coaching business and stuff like that. Because, when I was a kid, when lifting was like the only thing that I was doing, that's pretty much everything I put into. But nowadays, having a few different hands and a few different hats, I have to make sure that if I'm getting 1 rep a day of lifting or 1 rep a day of wrestling, 1 rep a day of coaching, it's a very, very high quality rep that replaces maybe like 4 to 5 mediocre reps I used to do when I was younger, when I had more time to do that stuff.
Man, that's a great analogy or metaphor, I should say, for so many aspects, but especially in the gym, where it's like you see a lot of people go in the gym, go through the motions, sloppy repetitions. It's like, man, if you did a fraction of those repetitions, but at a higher quality,
totally,
the results would be infinitely better. And then it also carries over, as you were saying, to everyday life.
Yeah.
But I think it is a great metaphor for priorities. It's like, hey, when you're a kid, 15, 16 years old, you don't have as many responsibilities. I think many kids don't have as many responsibilities. And then as you get older, you have more responsibilities, like more business, work, etc. It's like, all right, I've got to really prioritize my time, and I'm going to focus on putting the best effort into this 1 or 2 things, as opposed to trying to do the shotgun approach and spread myself thin over all of these things.
Right, totally. I mean, you look at a basic program that says 3 sets of 8. 3 sets of 8 could mean really anything given the person that's reading it on the other side, And so 8 intentional reps that are high quality, that are really pushing you to your limit, can mean more than 15 sets of 8 that somebody else is doing, getting half of the benefit simply because they may not know how to approach an exercise, or they may not have been even fueled for the exercise properly with their rest and nutrition. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But if you're doing 3 sets of 8 in life, even though that doesn't seem like a lot of volume up front, it can be a very meaningful session if you make every single rep within that 3 sets of 8 mean something in the gym, outside the gym.
So I want to take a minute, and I want you to take your time with this one. I just want to hear your story. You told us how you started training with your dad when you were 5, but like, walk us through your childhood, who you are, where you're from, how you got into fitness, what were you like as a kid, and then how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, so I'm from Phoenix, Arizona originally. My childhood initially started very, very young doing athletics. So whether that was playing catch with my dad or doing martial arts from a young age, I've always done something with my body, pretty much from the age of 2, as early as I can remember.
Did your dad do martial arts?
He did, actually, yeah. So he was doing martial arts well before I was born, but then as I started doing martial arts as a kid, he had signed me up for various different karate schools and stuff like that, but then he actually did judo with me for a short stint, so
Nice.
that was cool. Yeah, so we had that to bond over. But martial arts between my dad and I have always been a very strong sense of bond for between him and I as a father-son relationship. I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, our father-son relationship got better almost instantly because I feel
Really?
like it kind of brought us back to, like my childhood and then like his roots of what he really had passion for, which was, martial arts and lifting weights and stuff like that. So starting jiu-jitsu for me was the way that my dad and I actually started bonding again, which was really cool. So yeah, I started with martial arts and I started lifting weights at age 5. The story behind that is just simply I was a kid watching my dad lift weights in the garage because he would take himself through various like body transformations. If he got a little too heavy, then he would dedicate himself for like 3 or 4 months to lose 40, 50 pounds or whatever. And I would see him, dedicate himself in the gym, and we would have a squat rack and, old school CT Fletcher calls them pig iron plates. Yeah, like just like old school rusty plates.
That's awesome to
Yeah,
have that in your house. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it was great. I didn't realize back then how rare that was.
Yeah.
Even in today's world, most people don't have home gyms.
But back then, that's even way more rare.
Yeah, exactly. And so we had Olympic barbell, all your basic stuff like dumbbells up to about 80 pounds if I remember
Stop
correctly.
it.
Yeah, it was really really really
That's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah, and so after I got to an age where I was old enough to kind of comprehend what he was doing, then I started to get curious, like, oh, what is this? What is that? And I started like, picking up the weights or whatever. And then he started to just show me basic technique behind a curl, a press, a bench press, a squat, a deadlift. And over time, he started having me lift with him on Saturdays and Sundays, and I would do my sports and school during the week. Shortly after that, though, I started to realize that lifting wasn't super fun, at least for me as a kid. So it was like interesting at first when I was watching him go. But then when I started to realize that it was repetitive, you're doing the same things every week. You're having to wake up early when your friends are still sleeping in or going to the movies or whatever the case may be. That's when it became a little bit less fun. But my obediency as an only child eventually prevailed and helped me kind of stick through it because even on the days where I genuinely didn't want to do it, and a lot of people will ask, like, did your dad like force you to do it? Did you ever feel that way? I never felt that like that was forced, but I did feel as though from an only child, I didn't want to disappoint him or feel
Interesting.
disobedient in such a way where I knew he wanted me to lift with him for reasons such as like, building a better athletic base or even getting more respect in school and not getting bullied, stuff like that, stuff that he experienced. So from a son perspective, I just didn't want to disobey what I felt he wanted me to do, basically.
Yeah.
So eventually take that all the way until I'd say 6th grade, 7th grade. Then I started getting a little bit more respect for lifting all those years leading up to it. Because prior to that, I had never really talk too much about it, because if I had told a friend like what I did on the weekend, oh, what'd you do on the weekend? Oh, I went to the movies, I played video games, oh, I lifted weights with my dad. They're like, oh, really? That's weird. Yeah, exactly. And so I felt kind of insecure about it. It was like my little secret for 4 or 5 years. And then eventually in 7th grade, that's when I guess I started to get a little bit more muscle tone, like in my arms and such. And so people started to ask me, like, how much do you lift? And it was weird to me because I was trying to hide this for so many years. And I remember being kind of shy about it at first. Oh, I benched 135 with my dad yesterday.
That's
oh
crazy in 7th grade.
Yeah.
That's
and
nuts.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I got that kind of same reaction. And I was like, wait a minute, you guys aren't, so then.
You like that? Oh, you guys like that?
Yeah.
Wait till you see this.
Yeah, 100%. So then it became, oh, I can't wait to live with my dad this weekend so I can see what my new bench PR is going to be or whatever. And every single Monday, I remember going into my social studies class, and it was like people were waiting. Oh, what's your bench this weekend? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and it would just build and build and build, and then it peaked out my 8th grade year, right before we graduated middle school. I did 225 for the first time.
Shut the fuck up.
To this day, is probably the slowest grinder of my entire life, in my opinion. But still, it went up, and that was like where I kind of.
How many seconds do you think this lift took?
My dad was very, very honest in regards to like being like right there but not touching, and I knew he wasn't touching, but he was like so close because it looked like I couldn't have failed it at any given point, you know what I mean? But it had to have been a good like 5, 6, 7 second grind or something like that. And granted, the form no eccentric, like complete explosion off the chest, but like I got it from my chest up to the bar, and then that's what matters. So and so after that, that's when my dad stopped lifting weights, and then I started doing a lot of my own training. And as I talked about earlier, a lot of it was taking what he had taught me early on, but then trying to experiment with different things now that I was kind of let off the leash a little bit. So I had access to, different machines that we may not have used, or if I saw people at school doing a particular exercise, I might have tried to add that in. But I will say that the time that I spent lifting from age 5 up until age 14 set me up really well to do well in sports, to get a certain amount of respect in school, and then to obviously translate into what I've been doing the last 12 years of my life, which is powerlifting, jiu-jitsu, bodybuilding, coaching people, and then now professional wrestling. So ultimately, as far as like my story goes, outside of that as a kid, I'd say that I was relatively shy growing up. I was an only child, so it was very important to me to try to get that social aspect through things like sports and martial arts. And because at school I had my group of friends, but sometimes, like especially earlier on, it was hard for me to open up and get a group of friends, just because like my first experience in school, everybody has a bullying story, right? But mine is kind of funny. So my real name is Charles House.
Okay.
And my middle name is James. So I entered kindergarten by the nickname of Chucky off of Charles. My dad's name is Charles too. He goes by Chuck. And I don't know why Chucky became my nickname before kindergarten, but I can tell you that as soon as I started kindergarten, it quickly changed. So, yeah, I remember like walking to kindergarten all excited, and then all of a sudden when people found out my name was Chucky, I was just getting like tormented about Chuck E. Cheese or Chucky the doll, or like all these different things. Like, oh my gosh, I got to change this immediately.
All these mean kindergartners.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Chucky.
Yeah, exactly. And I had never really been in the school environment before, so this was all super new to me. So I changed from Chucky to James as a quick cop out. But then when I started doing judo in first grade, my sensei at the time called me Jimmy. Why are you calling me Jimmy? Oh, it's like a nickname of James. I call my friends James by the name of Jimmy. I'm like, okay, I like that. So then in first grade, I just stuck with the name Jimmy ever since. And it's not even like my legal name by any means. It's just my nickname.
I love that.
But most
I didn't
people
know
think it's
that.
my real name. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and then yeah, just playing sports throughout all my childhood, and eventually I fell in love with wrestling in high school. That was my first. Well, football was honestly my first passion as a kid, but I really fell in love with wrestling, and that's the first thing that I felt as though I took full responsibility of in regards to my accomplishments with it, and my own journey with it, because up until then my dad was bringing me to football practices and teaching me things about football and different things like that, but I'm the only person in my family who has ever wrestled. So when I started wrestling in high school, it was kind of like my own thing, and I think that the success that I gained early on from it, I found a lot of enjoyment in, and I was very curious to see how far I could go with it, and then that ultimately led into jiu-jitsu later on.
How did you decide to do wrestling?
So that basically, from that football passion that I developed as a kid, I went into high school with the idea that football was going to be like my thing. Like I've done all these different football seasons growing up. Like I love football. I want to be in the NFL. All these different things. I had wrestled a season in middle school just because I thought it would be a fun thing to do. We didn't have football at my middle school, so I tested it out. But I honestly, after that season, I didn't even know that I wanted to do it in high school or not. So I went for football my freshman year, and the whole experience was honestly pretty poor from the standpoint of I went in and there's a lot of favoritism towards certain players that had been that had already been coached by the current coach at that time.
Yep.
And although some of these players did have a fair amount of skill in town or whatever, I did feel as though I was also one of those players, especially with like the years that I had put into the sport. But the team, as far as like the positions I was going for, seemed to have already been kind of decided. And then with my size and strength, I was kind of defaulted to being put on the line, which if you're a lineman, great. Like there's a lot of impressive athletes, but it's just not what I wanted to do at the time, And so after that, just kind of having a bad taste in my mouth after that season, I saw the wrestling season coming up, and I was honestly really scared, because I knew that high school wrestling was a huge step up from middle school wrestling, and I know wrestling is debatably like the hardest sport you can do from a cardio standpoint alone. And so cardio was like my worst enemy at the time, and I was like, damn, like going from football where I already think the cardio sucks, and then going to wrestling where I'm like, I'm not really sure if I want to do this, but then again, football like really kind of let me down, so I'm not sure what I want to do. And then the conversation that I talk about a lot of times that my dad gave me the day before, he's like, hey, why don't you just try it? Just go in the first week, and if you don't like it, then it's okay. Just, find something else to do or whatever. And it's interesting because I'm the type of person that when I start something, I can never quit or I can never stop doing it necessarily. But my dad giving me that kind of gave me the sense of calmness of like, okay, like I'm just going to give it a shot,
I
basically.
love that.
Yeah, and because of that day alone has really painted the rest of my life. But I remember going into practice the first day, and it was much harder than football from a conditioning standpoint, but it felt much more rewarding. And I remember, I think it was the first or second week towards the end, but we had our wrestle offs for our first meet coming up.
Yep.
And I was going against a junior at the time in my weight class, and I thought that I was going to honestly get my ass kicked. But I ended up winning the wrestle off, and I got the varsity spot. And then so ever since that was when I was like, okay, I really like this idea of individual
Yes.
combat style sports where if I lose, I have to take the responsibility, but if I win, it just feels so much more gratifying. And so, ever since wrestling as a varsity freshman, that's what motivated me. Like, okay, so if I take full control of this, if I take full responsibility of this, I might be able to actually do something really cool with this. And the main thing that actually gave me motivation to do that was at the end of the season, I looked at the rankings, and for freshmen on varsity, I had the most wins in the state. And I was like, okay, maybe if I try really, really hard at this, I'll just give up football entirely. Maybe I'll like be a state champion by the time I'm a senior. And so that's what the next 3.5 years were dedicated towards. Like I will be a state champion. Like every single time I ran up a hill, it was, I will be a state champion, like manifesting as you're running type of thing. And that was like my main source of motivation for the next 3.5 years. But after getting fifth in state my junior year, which was really good.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's incredible.
Thank you. And especially too, because I started wrestling technically kind of late. A lot of these kids have been wrestling their whole lives. I started basically kind of in high school. And so placing fifth in state my junior year had me coming into state my senior year, the top ranked person in my weight class. So
Really?
things were like looking good in regards to what I had looked at my freshman year that initially gave me that motivation. I had initially gone up a weight class to just because I did a bodybuilding show the summer leading into my senior year as a way to mentally toughen myself up a little bit. And then after doing the bodybuilding show, my natural weight shot up to like 200. So I went from wrestling 182 junior year to 195 senior year. And even still, I was still one of the top guys in the weight class, but the guy that was a returning state champ at 195 was the person I was really aiming for. Long story short, go through the whole year, my first 40 matches undefeated.
Stop.
Yeah, so it was going really, really well.
Jeez.
And then the week before state is when I got a really bad concussion, and then 6 days before I was basically medically out of the game. I couldn't wrestle in state my senior year. Second through sixth were all people that I had beaten pretty handedly. The person who won it was the state champ that I told you about, and we never got to wrestle that year, unfortunately. So, when that happened, that was like my first kind of case, I guess, heartbreak when it comes to sports or just the reality of how life can go sometimes. But that now leads me into what really made me want to do jiu-jitsu was like when I found out about jiu-jitsu, it was kind of my second chance to try to take what I learned in wrestling and expand upon it into something that I can do far past high school. So then that's when jiu-jitsu kind of took the place of the dedication that I put into high school wrestling. And then, 6 years after that, I had my black belt. I'm doing a few different things now.
Man, that's an amazing story.
Thank you.
For
I appreciate
sharing
it.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a very similar wrestling journey. So I started wrestling when I was 8, so I started before you.
Yeah, I
But-
just noticed the years too. Yeah.
when I got into freshman year, I had wrestle offs against a junior, and I made varsity.
Awesome.
I thought I was going to get my ass kicked as well, and
That's
it was a
cool.
brutal wrestle off. But the point around the favoritism was, so I didn't grow up with money, and I played baseball, I played soccer, and wrestling. And for both baseball and soccer, the kids who would make the team or be played on the team were often not better, but their parents were able to afford going to the extra camps, like the off-season camps. And the coaches weren't supposed to be saying like, hey, you have to do this camp, but they would only pick the kids who would go to these off-season camps and be able to pay that extra money. And that's what I fell in love, or one of the reasons I fell in love with wrestling is because it didn't matter who your parents were.
Yeah,
It didn't matter if you did this extra camp or not. It's like, if you lose, You're not wrestling.
Yeah.
If you win, you are. And as you were talking about that, it was like, man, that's so much of what I went through. Granted, I was nowhere near on your level. I made states freshman year, but I didn't place. I got
What state is this?
Massachusetts.
Well, I assume that's probably tougher than Arizona, to be
I
honest.
don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
but that's
It's
awesome.
definitely not like a Pennsylvania or anything.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like it was I will always have a I love wrestling for so many reasons outside of just the sport, but like what it gives you,
Right.
the mental fortitude, it's something. I have two daughters, and like they don't have to compete if they don't want to, and they don't have to join the team if they don't want to. But we've got mats in the garage.
That's awesome.
We're gonna be
Yeah.
wrestling. We're gonna be
Yeah.
doing jujitsu.
That's really
It's
good.
such a wonderful gift to give your children, and especially understanding that it's like it's the only person you can blame is yourself.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of it.
I love it too because when you're at a tournament, for example, and you see like a parent trying to either pep talk their kids into a match or give them words of encouragement after a match, like after they lose or something like that. It's just like a different conversation than you hear in like say like a youth football league or youth baseball league or whatever. A lot of times I hear parents making excuses for their kids based upon what the other kids did.
Yes.
And even if that does hold some truth, I think subliminally that the child adopts a certain way of thinking that can present problems like later on in life. Whereas from a young age, if the child just understands that your performance dictated what happened, like it's okay that this happened, we're going to work on it, we're going to get better, it's totally fine, not the end of the world. But also like you yourself are the reason why this happened and you lost or you won. And like I think when the child adopts that mindset early on, then facing issues that present themselves later on in life are so much easier to handle because you're not like immediately looking for a reason why this person screwed you over or why this thing out of your control is a reason to blame. You know, you're just like, what can I do right now to fix this
Yes.
thing? So
I also think many people look at it and they'll say, well, it's you don't learn how to be a good teammate. And that's how I know they never wrestled or they never did jujitsu. It's like, well, the competition is individual. The training is a team.
Yeah.
And your training, sometimes you'll sacrifice bits of your own training to be a better training partner for what your training partner needs.
Truly.
I will go into a position that I don't necessarily need to work on, but I know you need to work on it. I'll adjust my intensity based on what I know you need.
Truly.
I will give you as your training partner, as your teammate, what you need. I'll stay late. I'll come early. We'll drill whatever you need to work on. And it's very much a give and take. It is a team. Never mind the rah cheering each other on and you're there as a team to support each other. But I feel like I've done many sports. I've done team sports. I've done individual sports. And the most that I've ever gotten out of is, without question, wrestling.
That's
without
awesome.
question.
I agree. I think wrestling is the best happy medium between an individual and then the team sport aspect because the way I describe it is say like basketball. At the end of the day, you could always go to the park and shoot a basketball with a hoop and get relatively better at basketball.
Yep.
Let's say golf, same type of thing, or
Yeah.
or even boxing. You know, you got a bag and you can punch it, work on your combos and whatnot. I know it's not completely the same, but you get my point.
Yeah.
With wrestling and jiu-jitsu, your shooting the hoop is taking somebody else's body that they're willing to lend you
Yes.
so that you can get your reps in and vice versa. And that's literally the only way that you're going to get better at the sport outside of watching film or whatever and taking notes. But at the end of the day, you have to go to practice and somebody has to be willing to lend you their body. And knowing what I know about injuries now, that's a big ask. To be able to practice the craft and get better at jiu-jitsu. And if you think about the people that are the best in the world at wrestling or jiu-jitsu, the amount of people that were a part of their journey to get there in regards to the amount of practice partners or even competitive opponents that it took to get there, none of that would have been possible unless there was a physical human body for them to practice everything on. So yeah, it's a very team-oriented sport because you could go into a practice like, well, I have to work on this, like I need to get this, and the other person can feel the same way, but there's like a coming to amends here where both people are understanding that let's work together and try to better each other because that you getting better as my partner is going to make me better and vice versa. And that's the cool thing about it.
I completely agree. There's a personal question that I wasn't planning on asking, at least at this point, but do you want kids?
Yeah, definitely. I've talked about this with my fiance. Our biggest thing right now is A, getting married first, and then B, letting my professional wrestling career start to take a little bit more of a specific course so that we can have a better idea of what direction or even what location that we're going to be in, and then start to make more of those life-changing decisions as time goes on. That would be our ideal.
Do you think that, God willing, you have kids, family, settled in a house, will you build a gym in your house?
Yeah, I think ultimately that's kind of what it'll probably amount to some degree. I always liked lifting in regular gyms, but the more that I get older, I think the more I appreciate the ability to have convenience of location and then also being able to get in and get out as quickly as possible. And whether that's like just not having to wait for people on machines or not having to walk across a gym that's a mile long, the convenience is a nice aspect. So I think honestly, I probably would.
I think for the people that can manage it, just having some gym equipment at home, just for your kids to see, just like in the same way you did, like with
That's
your
great.
dad, that he had like the squat rack, the plates, all that. It's I think just having your kids see you interact with the fitness equipment, with the gym, as you are the prime example, can lead to a lifelong passion for health and fitness, and make a almost like nostalgia part of why they work out, because
Yeah.
it brings back so many good memories of their times with their parents.
That's an amazing point because it reminds me of a client that I have. They work with me in person at the gym, but a lot of times, especially during the summer, they'll bring their kids. And it's kind of the same thing. Out of curiosity, the kids will like want to hop in on the workouts with them and then like learn specifically how to do a workout or whatever. And nowadays, it's becoming more common, which is a good thing, that kids are expressing interest in that and parents feel okay in allowing them to discover more interest within fitness and weightlifting and stuff like that. Whereas when I was a kid, again, it was more taboo, like lifting weights makes you short or whatever.
Yes.
So, and I said this on another podcast I did recently. It's like, well, you're already going to be short, so you might as well just lift. Like my mom is 5'1", and then my dad's like 5'8", so I've peaked out in 5'8.5". So I beat all odds.
That
and,
half inch is
yeah,
important.
exactly. So, and to me, my biggest thing against that myth is just, if the child is learning how to lift properly and is under good supervision, lifting at a young age would only expel potential growth, not just height wise, but everything else. It's no different than a child playing basketball in a hard court or football in a hard field, and the amount of pressure that they feel in their joints from that is no different.
I feel it's safer.
If anything, it's safer. Yeah,
100%
100%, because
safer.
the variables should be in more control.
Yes.
Now, I've seen videos where kids are being taught or not taught by somebody that shouldn't be in that position, and it looks pretty rough. And that in and of itself is just the basic concept of like, don't lift poorly regardless of what age you are.
Yep.
But yeah, ultimately, if the kid is under good supervision and they're taken through movements slowly and progressed, like, yeah, they should start as early as they're able to comprehend how to perform it.
The data on life-altering injuries, and you look at across all sports, including weightlifting. Weightlifting is the safest,
Yeah.
like without question. I mean, even life-altering injuries in soccer, in lacrosse, in football, in any sport, especially like a court or a field where you're doing hard cuts, it requires a lot of agility. Number one, they're amazing sports.
Yeah.
It's very important. But you wouldn't not let your child do that out of a
Yeah.
fear of an injury. It's like, no, your child should be playing. Your child should be being athletic. And the way to help prevent those injuries is to get strong in the gym and to
1000%.
train those movements. I think it's funny that I was brought up in the same, like, you shouldn't be lifting weights, you're going to be short. I'm like, bro, is that a joke? Number one, like, going to be short anyway. And that's always what sucks, is because parents will ask me, they'll be like, is it going to stunt my child's growth? And I'll be like, I know I'm not the best advocate for this. Like, I'm not the best representative because like I'm really
Right.
short, but like this has literally nothing to do with that. And being able to strength train and get stronger in these ranges of motion will help prevent them from having life-altering injuries.
Yeah.
And especially, like, this for everyone, but also especially for young girls, we're seeing, like, who have devastating knee injuries. We're seeing this whether it's with soccer, lacrosse. We're seeing it, like, especially in like the stunting, the gymnastics, the cheerleading events, where like some of the knee and hip injuries and back injuries that we see in young girls from not strength training is insane.
Yeah, to give my own perspective on that, outside of my 2 knee injuries that were kind of freak cases, I've never had a substantial major injury. especially not in childhood. And to me, ultimately, doing what I'm doing now, debatably doing the most dangerous thing that you can do for your body, be it professional wrestling, the amount of injuries that I've actually accumulated through the last 24 years are very, very low in comparison to the amount of volume that I put on my body and sports and lifting weights and these different things. You'd think that I'd have a lot more at this point. And to me, the main reason why I don't is, yeah, because I started lifting so young, learning how to, and then muscle is literally the armor for the body. So the muscle I put on as a young kid was able to bring me and kind of like mold with me up into this age now. And to me, it's allowed me to be just much more durable and take much more wear and tear that maybe other people would feel sooner than I do. That's my main opinion with it, really.
I have a whole section. It's called "You Said." Basically, I went through a bunch of things that you've said.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna pull those quotes. So I had an order, but I'm gonna sort of shift the order based on the conversation we're having right now. So you said, and I quote, "Rehabbing an injury is very similar to training to build muscle."
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the main concept behind why I say it like that is because injury rehab, I feel like to the average person has been categorized as something that you can only learn if you go to PT school or you go to school for it,
Yeah.
number one. And
It's
then
a lot of gatekeeping around
yeah,
it.
gatekeeping. And then to the average person, it almost comes off as something like, oh, I need this specific exercise with the band and then this ball and then, or this specific program, or how am I going to progress this if I don't know, like, all these different things that get thrown at you, that's basically like fear mongering in
Yes.
regards to, don't do this too soon or you're going to re-injure yourself type
Yep.
of thing. And so I have to credit Ben Patrick as
Oh,
as
man.
the first person to really open my mind to
Yeah.
this idea of rehabbing or injury prevention is actually really, really simple. It's just the idea of understanding progressive overload to some degree, but then understanding how to regress and then scale forward an exercise. And any exercise can be a rehab exercise. I think that was one of
Yes.
the coolest things to really understand is, if you hurt your knee and you go to a PT clinic or whatever, you might see them do a handful of different exercises. Some of them would be good, some of them would be questionable. But at the end of the day, a lot of times you ask somebody like, oh, I can't squat anymore because I hurt my knee, or I shouldn't squat anymore because I had this knee injury. Like, no. Because the squat, like, if really, like, as humans, just like your kids out there, they can have this perfect squat, I bet. Like, ass to grass on the
Yeah,
floor.
it's amazing.
Yeah, without any, there's no reason as adults we should ever lose that. And so the last two knee injuries that I had, for one, I did the PT all on my own for myself. And my main thing up front, and one of my first goals, like, I got to get back to a full range of motion squat again. And whether that's under a barbell or with a weight in front of me or just my body weight alone, I have to progress to a full body weight squat. Why? Because with this knee injury, if I can get it to be able to squat all the way down and all the way up again, then that kind of unlocks this whole canvas of other things that I can do or other things that I can progress once that full range of motion squat is completed. And so to bring up the point of what you said, that I said, is if you think about building muscle, it's like you go into the gym and you train a little bit harder than you did the week before. So you might do a little bit more weight, a little bit more reps, a little bit more of whatever, but not too much, and definitely, and ideally not less than what you did prior, so you can keep the progression going forward. Break muscle down, give your body a stimulus so that it responds and gets a little bit stronger the next week. To me, it's all about giving your body stimulus. And so at the point with my last knee injury, if I could only hit, like, say, a 90-degree squat before my knee got really, really tight, then giving it the stimulus of, say, some long iso holds in a say like a box squat or something like that, or with like a med ball to my chest, holding that position for sets of 10 seconds, gave my knee the stimulus to then allow a little bit more range of motion and a little bit more strength the next week. Very similar to the process of building muscle over time. So if you break it down to a very simple scale of just try a little bit harder than you did the week before and do that consistently over time, you'll find that rehab is so much more simple than what it's made out to be. And I always use pain as kind of a scale to let you know if you're doing something good or not. And usually, like, say I'm working with a client and they're working through an injury, we could be doing something. I'm like, do you feel pain doing this? Yeah, a little bit. Out of 10, what would you say? Like a 2 or 3. Okay, good. Let's keep it there for this week. We're on a good track. If you're feeling 2 or 3, that's good because your body's starting to tell you like, hey, don't go any lower because I'm about to do that, that
Yep.
type of thing. There's a lot of communication that goes on from your body that if you know how to stop and listen to it, it'll tell you where the right place is to stop
Yes.
for that given week. So for me, it was like going down to a point of a squat. Okay, I feel like a 2 out of 3 pain here. I'm going to do holds here. If I bring it to like a 6 or a 7, I might be kind of sore the next day, but I'm not going to re-injure myself. But if I keep it a 2 or 3 consistently and take a 90-degree squat to a 2 or 3, and then eventually a full range of motion squat to a 2 or 3, and eventually the pain's not there anymore, then that's kind of giving your body the time that it needs to heal and then also strengthen again to give you access to those ranges of motion. So that's really my idea with it, is that it's very simple, and then also don't stray away from pain. And the last point that I'll make is when it comes to the idea that you could be re-injuring yourself in the gym, say if you're going out on your own trying to rehab a shoulder or a knee, my opinion is that it's extremely hard to re-injure, let's say, your knee. If you're out in the gym doing your own thing, you would have to try really, really, really hard to re-injure, say, an ACL or whatever. If you're in the gym trying to do like a box squat or something like that, because like generally you're given, like just like I was, don't walk until week this, and don't run until week this, and don't squat until week this, right? Not to say that those aren't based off of legitimate statistics to some degree, but not everyone's going to be the same, especially not if you're an athlete coming in. So the thing that I always rely on is like, am I able to perform X movement at a 2 or 3 or less pain? And do I feel confident in doing it? And then just build off of that week to week to week. So,
I think many people look at rehab as this like it's supposed to be very low intensity. They look at, I have an injury, like even when people say, oh, my back hurts, oh, this hurts, like, do you have an easy stretch for me? I'm like, that's a misnomer. That's not necessarily the way that you're going to end up feeling better. And whenever people have an injury, they're like, what stretches can I do every day for this? I'm like, it's interesting to me that that's your go-to. And I think it's often what people have been told and led to believe: do this stretch every day, social media post, do this stretch every day, and your back is going to feel better. But that's not how it works. In the same way, it's like, hey, I want to build muscle. What exercise should I do every day? It's like, if you want to build muscle, you're going to train this muscle group like once, maybe twice a week, really fucking hard.
right.
And then you're going to rest.
Yeah.
If you want to improve an injury, you're going to train that muscle to a level of intensity that's difficult for you with minimal pain. There might be some, but not none. There will be some pain, and you're going to try and get better at that, and then you're going to rest and let it recover. And people think about physical therapy or rehab, and they think of these like easy band exercises. And I'm like, if I completely agree with you, if your face isn't contorting a little bit, if you're not struggling to complete these repetitions, you're probably not working hard enough to create the change that you actually want to happen.
Right.
And if you have pain, if you have discomfort, if you have an injury, then the level of intensity is going to be different than when, or the absolute weight will be different than when you were maybe at your peak performance. But the level of intensity that you're supposed to bring to that should be more or less equivalent. It should be very challenging. It should not be like la da 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 da, easy to do. It should be very challenging for you so you can get those adaptations.
Yeah.
And
Which goes to our point from earlier, like quality reps.
yes.
Yeah.
And as you were saying in regard to, you want to get to that full squat, you want to get to that full range. I think many people might be like, well, why is that? Why is that? Well, if you don't get there, and if your body doesn't use it, I mean, if you don't use it, you lose it type of thing. If you don't train your body, and especially your brain and your nervous system, to know like, oh no, I need access to this, then it's not going to give you access to it.
Yeah.
And that's when pain is going to get worse. And even more importantly, that's when fear is going to get worse. Fear of these movements, fear of these ranges of motion. And that's why I think as soon as you can, building strength to develop these ranges of motion as quickly as possible and strengthen these ranges, so you're no longer scared of them. So you can teach your body and your brain like, this is okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm safe here.
Right. I completely agree. I use the same verbiage and everything. And actually, it brings up a funny story that happened to me more recently, where I had an individual come up, and clearly he was trying to be helpful, but just I didn't align with him as far as like what his ideology was behind this. But it was at a pro wrestling thing that I was doing. and he had asked me how long I'd been doing pro wrestling, and I said I've technically been doing it like 2.5 years or something like that, but I've lost about a year and a half because of my 2 knee injuries, blah blah blah. And he didn't know that they were acute from jiu-jitsu, so he's like, and just I don't know where this idea comes from, so don't ask me. But he was like, yeah, no, well, you see how you're sitting, with your knee going past your toe like that. That's like actually, and
Oh my
this just
gosh,
sitting,
shut up.
just sitting. I was just sitting time with you. It's like, yeah, so like that, this leg is safe, my 90-degree leg, but this leg where my knee is going past my toe, he told me that that can cause injury over time. And so normally when this happens to me in the real world, I'll be honest, I just normally go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah, because I just try to like get them to shoot
not worth it.
basically. Yeah. But this one was going so far off track that my ego was having a hard time like doing that. And I was like, okay, honestly, I just completely disagree with everything you just said. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, just, my 2 knee injuries, I rehabbed them on my own, and I did basically the opposite of everything you're telling me to do right now. And he's like, oh, really? Okay. And he seemed genuinely interested, but then he was kind of saying like, well, when you're my age, that type of thing. And that comes up. And he's like, it may not feel it now, but when you're my age, blah, blah, blah. And I was really trying to get out of there, but then it got my brain going as I'm driving home from San Antonio. And I'm like, okay, what I should have said was, all right, if you take the 80 to 85, 90-year-old Asian people, right,
Yep.
that eat in an acid grass squat and they just do that.
Yep.
So according to this individual, eating like that is bad for your knees. Maybe not now, but long term, right? So as this 80, 85-year-old Asian lady or Asian guy is eating their dinner, and you tell them that this is causing knee problems in the future, I'm like, when is this going to hit
When
for
they're
them?
200, man, there's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, like 120, 150 or whatever. I'm like, when is this actually going to hit? But jokes aside, it goes back to your point of if you don't use it, you lose it, and then it's going to be 10 times harder to gain access to what you once had.
Yes.
And then maybe something like this can be temporarily dangerous or whatever, because you just don't get in that position ever.
Yes.
Why would you avoid it when you can just attack it head on? And I think that's the thing with most people, just they don't know how to attack it head on, because how do I get from barely being able to bend my knees to going all the way down in a squat if I'm already in so much pain like this? Like there is a way, and it takes a lot of patience. And I think you understand really well too, because you've gone through the journey of getting your middle splits.
Yeah.
Mobility is very similar to injury rehab. And to your point of like having intensity in your mobility sessions.
Yes.
People don't understand, to get to your level of mobility, that your sessions should look like that.
It's torture.
Yeah.
It's torture.
It should literally be torturous. Whereas most people think like, well, if I'm gonna get my splits, I'm gonna do this stretch, and then I'm gonna, just relax through it. But no, it has to be as intense as what you show in your videos. But for most people trying to get to a point of just being able to bend their knee again, it is like that to some degree, but at the beginning up front, you can really take your time and baby yourself. When I first injured this, I just put my foot on top of a table like this and just rock in and out with my knee until it felt a little bit better, and I could do more and more and more. But as long as you stay on top of it, you'll be in a good place to heal yourself entirely.
I'm so glad that we're having this discussion, because I feel like when people get injured, it's number one, it's so demoralizing. It can be really demoralizing. It can be really emotionally challenging and depressing, and they often use it as like, well, I'm just not going to go. Like, why bother? I'm not going to go. I can't do anything. But this flips that on its head, where it's like when you get back in there immediately and you do what you can. And if there's pain, you don't run from the pain.
Yes.
You don't push it. You don't push it to the point of excruciating pain, but you have to get comfortable being like, okay, there's a very moderate amount of pain, and I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to get stronger with the range that I have, to progressively get better and better and better. So you can, number one, expedite the healing process, and then get back to being stronger than you ever have been before. I feel like most people approach pain and injury specifically, especially like when they have a really devastating injury, they just stop going.
Yeah.
And that makes the whole process, never mind the actual physical aspect of it, but if you're someone who loves training, it's like it's the worst. You feel like you can't go. It's like, that's not the right way to do it. You get back in there immediately and you do whatever you can with what you have in that moment.
100%. And to that point, that's where, like with my knee injuries to my right leg, I got back in the same a couple days later, and then started working my left leg.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different subject about cross transfer and how that
Yes.
works. But yeah, to your point, there's always something that you can do. Even if you're too early on to work a surgical knee, then you can still work your good side to some degree.
Yeah.
And that's something too, where I heard a podcast the other day, and the person was talking about how they just got a surgery and it was on their knee. So, well, I can't do legs for a while, but I'll do upper body, whatever. But you can do legs. You can.
You
And
can.
you can do that good one, because the cross transfer effect just basically says that if you work your current good side, then it gives your body a higher set point to match up to once you're fully cleared on your side that's injured. And I believe that 100%. If anything, it's allowed me to even out my less dominant side. But working this leg has allowed my right side of my body is given it just like something to meet, whether it's machine exercises or squats or different mobility routines or whatever. I think people to that point think if they work one side of their body, then it's just going to be imbalanced for the rest of their life, and it doesn't work that way, because the muscle memory that you once had on this side
Yes.
will work extremely fast, and that's what you're trying to tap into when you step back into the gym, like you said, as soon as you possibly can.
You know what? I have a theory about that cross transfer effect, which again is just like if you train one side, then it will. If you have an injury on the other side, it will help maintain muscle mass and to at the very least reduce the reduction of muscle mass, but it'll help maintain strength. Anytime I've done a single arm or a single leg exercise, the non-working arm or non-working leg is not flaccid.
Yeah, right.
Like there's tension there.
Yeah.
No matter what, like if I'm doing a single arm dumbbell bench press or I'm doing a single leg extension, whatever it is, the non-working leg, there's still significant muscle contraction going on. It's impossible to just keep it flaccid. Like good luck. And I think that is one of the reasons, if not potentially the reason, but one of the major reasons, and I have no research to support this. This is my own thoughts, just as like practically, if you are contracting that muscle, and even when it's not actually working through a full range of motion, but if that muscle is contracting, that's going to help maintain that muscle mass that you have, especially in a highly injured state. Whereas if you just don't do anything for your lower body at all, well, like good luck. Now you're going to atrophy, and it's going to reduce not only your strength in your muscle, but also your mobility. So that's, and again, I'm just like rambling, but like that's one of my main thoughts. Like I think because I've never been able to just keep completely relaxed in the non-working leg.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think honestly, you're probably really onto something there, because I remember the first week or so coming out of that surgery, I mentally couldn't even contract my quad at all.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point when I started to feel those contractions coming back, then just the overall sense of awareness around this leg started to increase again really quickly. And then like that just led into like everything else.
Yes.
You know, so like early on contractions can even just help your body relearn the idea of having use of this leg as it progresses into different exercises once it kind of starts to get healed more and more.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's the whole concept behind E-stim. It's like you essentially
tried it, but
get the muscles to contract. Like you're forcing the contractions.
Right.
I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it's become another fad where like, well, I'll just put on these little things and electrocute myself. There's a time and a place for it, but I think that whole concept is, well, let's get the muscle contracting.
Yeah.
And if you can almost force that through training the strong leg or the non-injured leg or arm, whatever it is, great.
Yeah.
And you're also, never mind the behavioral aspect, I think one of the hardest parts is just getting back in the gym.
Yeah.
So don't leave.
Totally. Yeah.
Get back in.
Yeah.
The next day, go.
I could imagine what it would have been like if I had taken 2 months off or
Oh my
whatever.
gosh.
Yeah, it just your entire body would have been suffering the effects, and it's not even like the injured part, you know. So it's not worth it. It's hard because there's those days where you just kind of like, because sometimes being in the gym when you're in that state is like this 2-hour long reminder that you're not where you once were, and sometimes that is mentally defeating. But I think it just kind of comes down to understanding that on the other side of that coin, the possibilities are much worse if you just decide to not go at all or stop putting in the amount of intensity that you normally would. You just kind of have to just take it a day at a time, and it eventually ends up being for the best. That's how I see it normally, at least.
So in June of 2023, you deadlifted 815 pounds, which is fucking wild. That's absolutely insane.
Thank you.
You said in that post that you shared, you said you had recently transitioned from conventional to sumo. What led you to change your stances from conventional to sumo? And do you incorporate both sumo and conventional in your training?
So nowadays, I don't deadlift outside of like RDLs really all that much
Okay.
anymore. Simply because once I hit that 800 mark, I was really, really content with that. That was kind of like a life goal for me. And then when I started pro wrestling, then I started to try to arrange my training around what I deem my weaknesses to be. So deadlift, regardless if I ever do it again, will always be a strength of mine. You
Yeah.
know, I promise that I could probably maintain 500 to 600 really well. Up until that point too, I stopped training conventional, but I was still maintaining a 700 conventional deadlift without really any practice. So when it comes to wrestling nowadays, I just try to pick implements where it's going to test the length of my muscles in particular positions, and still try to get strong, but in positions that are a little bit more compromising, so I have a little bit more durability when it comes to my
Smart.
particular sport, right?
Smart.
Yeah, and because when I say that, sometimes people think, "Oh, you're not you're not for deadlifting anymore. You think it's dangerous or whatever." Like, no.
Did you hear what I said,
Yeah,
motherfucker?
yeah. No, like I still think deadlifting is a phenomenal variation to do, but at the end of the day, for what I'm doing, the amount of time and energy it would take to add 5 pounds to it is not worth the potential detrimental effects because I'm needing to go so heavy for it. So if I can just keep it at a maintenance base with minimal effort, but then pick other exercises that I'm clearly weak at
Yep.
and put that time into those things, then I just become a better overall athlete. So,
Not to mention, like, if you're deadlifting, like, once you get to like 5 plates, six
Yeah.
plates, 7 plates, like that's a long time in the gym,
yeah,
dude.
totally. Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
long, like, never mind
1000%.
the energy and the injury risk and all of that. It's like, fuck, I could spend my time doing so many other things that would address a legitimate weakness that I have rather than only focusing on this really big strength that I have.
Yeah, exactly. I can tell you how many times I went to the gym for squatting or deadlifting, and that was literally the only exercise that I did, you know?
It takes a long time.
It's a
And
long
sometimes you
time.
got to wait for other plates to open
Yeah.
up. So it's like, yeah.
Right, 100%. So nowadays, that's my main focus. But back then, I was I had reached a 765 deadlift when I was at 235 pounds body weight, and then I had just barely missed 800 when I was about 240 pounds body weight. Then I lost a bunch of weight for a big jiu-jitsu competition that I had, and ever since then I've maintained about 200 to 205. And then I started doing deadlifting again after that. I got up to a 740 pound conventional deadlift, which was like 3.7 times body weight or something like that. And then I was signed up to do like basically my last powerlifting competition shortly after I moved to Texas. And there's a group of lifters down in Houston that all are pretty much like the best in the sport right now. They all deadlift at the time at least over 800. Now a lot of them are over 900, and they're all like 23, 24, 25-year-old
kids are
Yeah.
crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's insane. And so I went down there and I was going to deadlift with them, but the week prior I had kind of
Is that Dawson?
Dawson was my original coach,
Okay.
but he lives in North Carolina.
Got it.
But
Okay.
my friends that I met through Dawson, Derek Thistlethwaite, Sawyer Klatt, Johnny
Yep.
Kaufman, Nabil,
Yes.
they're all in Houston.
Got it. Okay.
And so I went down there one time, and I had pulled my back doing conventional the week prior. Not too bad, but a little bit. So I wasn't going to do conventional again. So I was like, maybe I'll just try sumo, you know? And I had done sumo in the past, but never super technically. I always kind of yanked it off the ground because I was explosive.
Yeah.
But then when I started doing it, I remember my friend Johnny seeing my stance and like that's really good positioning for somebody that never does sumo. And the main reason why I can get in good position is because externally I can rotate my hips well.
Yeah.
And then my arms are long. So with good external rotation of the hips and long arms, that's usually set yourself up for a good sumo position, cheater position, basically. So he kind of like coached me through a couple reps on that one. And the next week I came back and went a little bit heavier. And I started to kind of really dissect what sumo was from a much more technical aspect. And he was just like, you know, you'll be able to deadlift 800 in no time. I'm like, really? With no like effort or dedication? That sounds great. Because with conventional, just to my point from earlier, I was just like ramming my head against the wall, trying to gain every 5 pounds that I could. And, you know, it's just a lot of effort when at the time I was still doing jiu-jitsu and starting my pro wrestling. So it's just, Is it possible? Maybe, but sometimes it's not worth finding out. So when he was like, "Oh yeah, you could definitely do 800," so then I adjusted my form a little bit, and then the next week I deadlifted 765, and my numbers were going up really quickly. Not because I was getting any stronger, but just because I was adapting to the technical adaptations of it.
Yep.
And then I think the video you're referencing was maybe like 3 or 4 weeks later. And I went back home to Arizona. I was feeling good that day. And, I wedged my hips in well. I was very patient off the floor and then just went up.
It was tough off the floor, but it came up fast after that.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I learned from those guys with sumo is the patience aspect of it. Whereas conventional, I've always just kind of yanked it off the floor. So I've known within the first second or two whether or not I was going to get it.
Yeah.
Versus sumo, visually, he's stuck. But then you wait like a second or two longer. It's like you're kind of doing this almost like video game-esque charge up of like a racing video game where they kind of like rev the engine. That's kind of how I see it. And then you finally step on the gas and the bar comes up. But I found that when I rushed the pull, then it would just immediately pull me out of position. It would eat me.
Yeah.
But if I can stay in this window that's literally about this wide and be patient and stay here the whole entire time, then I can get most any weight to move as long as I stay within that window.
Yep.
And that's where like you see a lot of sumo pullers that don't look like they should lift any more than 225 are now deadlifting 800 or whatever pounds because they're built for it. They are very strong, but then also technically they're very sound and leveraging what their body is making them work with. And so for me, that was the most I've lifted, but I think the most weight that I'm proud of lifting is my 200 pound or my 800 pound deadlift at 200 pound body weight, which was 4 times body weight exactly. That one was basically the prime example of what I'm talking about, where if I wasn't patient off the floor and if I wasn't staying in that tight window, I 100% would have failed, just because like it was like a grinder to say the least, but I was super patient and stayed in the position. And the main reason, to answer your question, I switched was simply to try to hit that 800 mark really and just see if I could do it, So
dude, I did lifted 530 at 132. So
that's
I
amazing.
hit that 4 times as well. And it was with it was sumo as well. And you were describing like it. I've found it's easier to be more explosive with conventional. I feel like conventional is more similar to like a box jump.
Yeah,
basically, right? You can essentially be super, super explosive, and obviously you need to be explosive in order to lift 800 pounds. But I almost liken the initiation of the sumo deadlift to like if you're trying to merge onto the highway. You'll like slowly press the pedal down a little bit, and then boom, then you hit the gas really hard. There's a point where, and I think this is very difficult for beginner and even intermediate lifters to understand. It takes time to build up enough force to essentially start moving the bar. It's unlike almost any other lift where it's like you can like a dumbbell bench press or whatever you're doing, like you can create that force immediately to reverse that weight, to lift that weight concentrically. But with a really heavy deadlift, it's not going to happen immediately. Sometimes it takes time, like literally 3, 4, 5 seconds, which feels like an eternity to get that weight to essentially apply equal and slightly more force than the bar is applying into the ground to slowly lift it up. If you can just wait until it's a little bit off the ground, boom, you lock those knees out, hips come through, boom, it's good. But it takes its patience. And one of the things I would have a lot of my lifters do, inner circle members, whatever, is you have to record yourself, because a lot of times, more often than not, when people are like, oh, it's just not coming off the ground, I'm like, record yourself. Tell me how long you're actively trying, and oftentimes it's less than a second.
Yeah, right.
They'll pull, done. It's like, I want you to do 3 to 5 seconds before you decide to quit, and within those 3 to 5 seconds, that bar is coming off the ground. It takes patience.
Yeah, truly, and it's so weird because there's no other way to really describe it other than just give yourself another couple seconds and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's scary because they're like, it's under a lot of tension and for a significant amount of time. But anyone who's done like a pause squat, for example, and you've recorded it. You know that like you might think you're doing 2 seconds and you've paused for maybe a fraction of a second. Record your lift so you can see exactly how long it's taking you, because you might think it felt like forever, but you were actually you barely tried for a full second.
True. Yeah, true. When Dawson had me do like 5 second
Oh
squats,
my
pause
gosh.
squats, normally before I started doing the recording, I would maybe get three if I was lucky.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And that's what I found with most clients of mine too is what they believe to be five or what they believe to be 10 ends up being like usually half of that, maybe.
Yes, that's generous too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they'll be like, because I'll do it too. It's like if I'm doing like a what I program, because I'll do the inner circle programs like that I program for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But if I say like a pause squat and I'm just warming up or whatever, I'll be like 1, 2, and I'll come up 1, 2.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not even a full second.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to record it and then actually look at how long you're down there relative to the time on the camera.
Yeah, exactly. In the powerlifting community, I've seen people put, this is my 2 count pause squat or versus like a 2 second pause squat. And like
Oh,
and to me, it's just, that's their
that's
way of saying
bullshit.
like 1, 2 basically versus like 0, 1, 2. Yeah. When they say count versus 2 second or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah. 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 So, and whenever I have to go through that, I'm like, I usually, for me, when I started getting it was when if it's a 5 second pause, I'm counting to probably 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Or if it's a 10 second pause, then I'm probably counting to like 15, 16, something like that. And trying to like actually go slow in my head. And
Yes.
even when you do go slow, then yeah,
You're
it's still,
speeding it
yeah,
up
you're still
still.
off. Yeah.
That's something I've had to do with my mobility training because I'll try and I'll do like for example with the middle splits I'll do like I'll try and do an intense hold,
Hmm.
but then I'll try and come slightly out of it and then hold statically for a little
Nice.
while.
Okay.
But I had to take my watch off and I have to put it in front of me
Hmm.
because I try and hold it like I'll do the intense hold for 10 or 15 seconds, which is devastating.
Right.
And then I'll come up slightly and try and hold statically for the remainder of that minute.
Hmm.
And if I was counting in my head, the total time it might be 20, 25
Yeah.
seconds. But like when I actually have the watch, I can keep myself
Hmm.
honest. It's devastating.
Yeah, truly.
Did you or do you, I guess did you, because you're not doing really super heavy deadlifts from the floor now,
Mhm.
but did you ever struggle with fear or anxiety before attempting a new max squat or deadlift?
Yeah, I never struggled with fear in regards to am I going to hurt myself, but
Okay.
more so just fear and am I going to be able to like lift this basically.
So you're never worried about injury?
No, not ironically, no. For the longest nowadays I would be for sure.
Because you've experienced it?
Yeah, I've stepped away from it enough and have experienced other injury to where it's just like, okay, like every potential thing that I do, got to like think twice. But back then, again, you're young and you've been deadlifting since childhood, and the thought of injury just never really came
That's so
across.
funny.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, I would be fearful sometimes if I would fail a particular lift or not or mess up on the technique or something like that, and that would give me anxiety. But to a large degree, I feel like that was kind of beneficial too because it just helped me keep myself to a higher standard when I was performing the lift itself.
What do you tell clients who have a fear of injury?
Yeah, so that's where I always try to remind clients to trust the way the program is structured because with the implementation of technique, obviously, but the program, if it's a good program, should be structured to build that confidence week after week over time so that the jumps that you're taking aren't super big so that you should realize like, hey, you did 225 for 8 reps last week. So doing this 235 this week for a set of 5, like you already got this, you've done this already, that type of thing. The structure of the program should give the client confidence in that sense. But as far as normal fears that may or may not come up, that's where I always just try to remind the person like, hey, like the program's in place, number one. And then number two, brace your core, pull the slack, get in position, and you'll be just fine. It'll be very hard to experience injury if those three variables are in place. Bracing your core, ideally against the belt, in my opinion, pull slack properly and make sure that you're aligned with the bar over your center of gravity and you'll be in a good position to excel through the set.
I think what you said about essentially saying you've already done this, that's genius because the most injuries happen when people are nervous and scared. And when you're nervous and scared, you change your technique. You do
Yeah.
something stupid. So essentially, you're giving them the confidence, oh, I've already done this, so there's no reason to be worried or fearful. So then they're not going to change their technique. They're not going to do something stupid.
Totally.
Well, anytime I've gotten injured, or not anytime, most of the time, and when I say injured, like tweaks here and there, it's because I let myself get in my head that led to me changing my technique. I was so scared, I was so worried, I was so overthinking it that I did something I don't ever do. So for you to just say, "Hey, you've already done this," and also to give them the confidence of them knowing like you have the strength. Like
Right.
there's not a question of whether or not this is going to happen. I would imagine it calms them down and gives them the confidence to know, okay, there's no reason to be worried about this.
Yeah. To expand off of that, as a coach, that's where your word is very powerful, as you're saying. And so one of the things that I'll also add to that more often than not is I will never put something on the bar that you can't do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that comes from me holding myself to a high standard as a coach from week one up until week whatever that we're testing their strength to some degree, where in all the prior weeks that you also may have felt some sort of fear or anxiety, you ended up being fine. And it's because I selected the way that I was confident that you could do.
Yep.
So if you don't feel confident in yourself right now, put your confidence into me, because as your coach, I'm selecting this weight for you to do. And you have very rarely and usually never failed under my supervision. So with that said, like this will be just fine.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And a lot of times too, I find that in general, clients, and in person at least, feel much more comfortable if I give them a range and if I pick a weight that may not be their all out max, because there's very few times to justify that anyways. But like, hey, let's shoot for 1 to 3 with this, or 2 to 4 or something like that. That way, if you're on the lower end, I was still right. But if you end up excelling through this as you gain confidence, then you'll start to realize you're a lot stronger than you actually think.
Yeah.
Too. So
One thing I would do with clients who are really focused on higher level powerlifting performance. Let's say a client was going to go for a PR and they were really nervous about it. I would, as we were building up to like a higher weight, I would just be like, go on a walk, like go walk around the
Nice,
gym for a
okay.
minute. And when they weren't watching, I would put on the PR
Oh,
weight,
nice.
so they wouldn't know that it was
I've
there.
heard about that. Yeah.
And then they would come back like, all right. And then I would say, listen, this is a warm up. Like you've already done this before. Let's just get ready for the attempt. All right. And they'd sit down, or I vividly remember doing this with bench press a lot. They would lie down, they'd do it. It would come up pretty easy. And then I'd be like, congrats, that was your PR. They'd be like, no, it's not. And then they would count the weight. They'd be like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
But it's just the brain, it can really either it can really be your greatest enemy or your greatest ally, depending on how much you let it get to you. And so much of this game is a mental game. When it's like, as I know, like anytime there's like not even just a PR, but like if it's a big PR, like you're adding either a quarter or a 45-pound plate to it, like these big jumps out of nowhere, all of a sudden, or these round numbers, like 300, 400, whatever it is. That's when people really get in their head. And it's like, if you just didn't even know that it was there, you would have been able to do it. That's why sometimes people be like, maybe they're at, for example, 290, and they're like, yeah, I tried 295. It's like, why? Just go to 300. Why?
Yeah.
If you can do 295, you can absolutely do 300. But people really build it up in their head. It's like, if you're gonna go for 295, I'm gonna lose my shit. Just go to 300. Just, you might as well do it.
Yeah. That's funny. That's a good point.
You said powerlifting is not complete as a training methodology for professional wrestling. What type of athleticism does professional wrestling demand? And how do you train to achieve that level of athleticism?
Yeah, great question. So the post you're pulling that from is just a video where I'm explaining all the basic styles of strength training, bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, strongman, whatever, and then just relaying it to the sense of like, if you're a professional wrestler trying to train for the ring, is this singular training modality your top pick, basically? Because a lot of times in professional wrestling, usually it's more bodybuilding style training, or going to the gym and working out, basically. But a lot of times professional wrestlers will know that they have to go to the gym and then strength train kind of like a bodybuilder and think that's kind of doing what they need to get done. Or others will see some videos online and think, okay, I got to get stronger, so I need to squat, bench, and deadlift. I need to do this Westside barbell program, or like whatever the case may be that they come up with. And the main premise behind that video is just simply, if you deem something like a squat, bench, or a deadlift to be a glaring weakness of yours, to where, say, for example, I can't support somebody that I'm trying to lift in the ring, and because I'm not strong enough to, then adding a squat, a bench, or a deadlift could be a very beneficial thing to add to powerlifting. But powerlifting as a whole, is just incomplete as a training style in regards to the demands of wrestling. So to answer your original question, you think about professional wrestling and it's very visual, right? So you have that aesthetic part. So some bodybuilding, hypertrophy, sculpting exercises are good. Obviously, we know we can accomplish that through powerlifting as well, but sometimes like picking certain parts of your physique to bring up can be smart. From a powerlifting aspect, again, like let's say you're a full grown male and your max deadlift is like under 200 pounds. If you're wrestling somebody in there that's like 200 plus pounds, 300, and you're asked to, either pick them up for some sort of slam or support them as they're trying to slam you, then that can be problematic because now you're just unsafe because you're simply not strong enough to do the sport. On the flip side of that, though, if you're not cardiovascularly inept enough or adept enough to be able to last a full match, so you're not doing cardio in the gym, not specifically like Stairmaster for hours, but just simple like VO2 max training, whether it's on an Airdyne bike or like a treadmill or something like that. Having elements of that in there is important. Having elements of like traditional athletic based training, such as like box jumps or med ball slams or short bursts of sprints or stuff like that is all important. And so when I designate a program for myself or somebody that I'm working with in professional wrestling, I try to have a touch of everything in there. Now, certain people, depending upon what their strengths are, I might lean a little bit more towards cardio or mobility or explosion, as opposed to if they're already jacked. I'm like, all right, we're already jacked. So unless you're looking to get bigger, we probably don't need to touch on bodybuilding stuff as much. Or if you're already ridiculously strong, we don't need to touch on power movements as much and put more focus on the other things. But I have this idea that, a professional wrestler should train with idea of aesthetic, strength, explosion, cardio, and then mobility / durability. And depending upon the wrestler and their strengths and weaknesses within those 4 or 5 things, then the program starts to deviate a little bit and then be more accustomed to what they need given their strengths and weaknesses.
So it's a very
I
all-encompassing,
would say so.
it's high-level athletics. I think the major difference is it also includes aesthetics.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's the part that I overlooked even, which is like you can't just you have to look the part. So you have to look the part and be super athletic and strong and mobile and explosive. I mean, there's a lot to it.
Right. And it doesn't go to say that all of that needs to be completed in one singular training session, because you can definitely touch on the athletic, explosive side in a wrestling practice, given the drills that you're doing and stuff like that. But again, I like the idea of microdosing things over time.
yeah.
And so even if I'm just doing 10 minutes of athletic based training before my strength training as a general warm up and to kind of slowly build movements over time, that to me is more valuable than, say, never doing it and only relying on the jumps that you do naturally in practice as your athletic based training. Like if I'm going to take a particular attribute and want to progress it over time, I want to have something of that in my training to where even if it's just a simple box jump or a med ball slam, that I can at least trackably, progressively overload this movement to some degree and see tangible improvement in that area, just like you would try to see for a bench press or a deadlift or whatever. And then even on the cardiovascular side of things, being able to hold an assault bike sprint for longer than you did last month, that type of thing. All things that if you see progress in those areas, you at least know that there should be some carryover to what you see going on in the ring. Because I think to the average person, it's just hard to realize all the different things that are going on at once. Physically, what I talked about pretty much covers it all, but even mentally, there's so much more going on, such as the acting side of it, the ability to listen to the crowd and change things in the ring on the fly, being able to psychologically tell a story properly and do all these things that are far past what the normal person understands. But to be able to mentally be, let's say, calm enough to do those things, you have to physically be in shape enough to where physically you're not inhibiting your ability to mentally perform. So that's why, as somebody who coaches wrestlers, I try to hit all those points so that they're just them as an athlete improves, so that they're themselves as a wrestler, which is more up here sometimes, can be just have a better avenue to be better expressed in the ring, basically.
I love all of that. To your point about, even if it's just 10 minutes of some plyometrics or a box jump or a med ball slam or whatever, uh, I think many people feel like if they're going to get better at something, they need to do an entire session
Hmm.
just dedicated to that, an hour of plyometrics or an hour of cardio. It's like, it's really more of a conjugate approach where it's like, let's just do a little bit
Yeah.
on a very frequent basis and progressively overload it. I love that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm, I will always have a place in my heart for West Side and for
Hmm.
Louis and that conjugate style
Yeah, it's
system.
great. It's a great baseline for a lot of what's
Yes,
out there now.
especially for people who are really focused on athleticism and people who want to be good at many things.
Hmm.
If you want to be good at many things, it's not like the block approach where it's like you have one block just on
Hmm.
hypertrophy or one block just on strength or one block just on plyometrics. It's like we can do it all little bits on a very regular basis and progressively overload over time. So over time you can improve everything at once
Right.
as long as you stay consistent and keep doing this. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes people see like professional athletes and they do have, a 30 to 45-minute session just based on plyometric and metrics, and then they have their strength training session later, and they have the time and the resources to allocate to have more volume in on these particular skills. But the reality is most people don't, and if you are most people, then I'd rather see the microdosing of that each week as
Yes.
opposed to not doing it at all, because I've been on the side of like I really want to focus on my athleticism, but I don't feel like I'm actually doing it unless I have a full like 30 45 minutes to dedicate to it. So then I just end up not doing it at all,
Yes.
So, and nowadays I just try to view it from the perspective of like, okay, yes, maybe it would be ideal to have more time dedicated to that one skill, but if I wasn't going to do it at all, it's better that I do it a little bit, 10 minutes or whatever each week. And if I do 3 10-minute sessions of it each week, then it kind of totals up to about the same anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, I mean, not a lot of these, when we're looking, we can't compare ourselves to professional athletes. That's just ridiculous. Like, especially if they don't have, like, if you're a full-time working mother, father, whatever, and like this, you're just training
Yeah.
to supplement your life. Training isn't your life. Comparing yourself to a high-level elite Olympic professional athlete is so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's like, when you're at that high level, you need more in order to continue to make that teeny tiny extra
Right.
little bit of progress. When centimeters matter for your place in the world, then it makes sense to spend way more time. But if you're not anywhere near that level, you don't need that level or intensity of training or frequency or duration of training in order to continue to make tremendous progress.
Yeah. With professional wrestlers, there are some really, really athletic people. A lot of them are former professional athletes. But if you're not, sometimes it's just about making sure that you're at the baseline to not fall short of what's expected of you in the ring, and
Yeah.
then it comes down to you as a wrestler working your character to really do what's called getting over to the audience. But making sure that your baseline to keep up with the best of the best should be a goal to accomplish in training, in my opinion. And there's some people that completely contradict the point that I'm making, and some of them are good friends of mine that are just great wrestlers, but have been doing it for so long, and their main training style in the gym is like bodybuilding, and they make it work.
Yeah.
But also, I just think that for somebody starting out, that's like maybe more so your average person trying to break in, and you want to like develop all these skills necessary to really appeal. Then like it's good to touch on these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you said, or actually, no, this wasn't you. This was your fiance. Your fiance posted an amazing video of you two working out together, and she said, "Our goals are different, but training together has always been a love language for us. My wife and I work out together as well, and we love it. I'm wondering, do you all follow the same program, or do you just train together at the same time? How does that work?"
Yeah, so this is where she is definitely much less selfish than I am, because she's really into CrossFit. She has a CrossFit competition coming up this weekend, but she does like to strength train more traditionally, so like bodybuilding or powerlifting type movements. And usually if we're working out together, she's doing whatever I have planned for that day as opposed to what she would do. She always makes jokes that like, "Oh, you should do a CrossFit workout with me sometime." I'm like, no. But also at the same time too, yeah, whenever we work out together, it's great because despite her being a girl, I don't have to exchange pounds and pounds of weight. She keeps up super
She's
well.
strong. She's super
Yeah,
strong.
and
Yeah.
she's a coach and she knows what she's doing. So there's not a whole lot of downtime to stop and explain. And it ends up being a very positive scenario where we're both kind of pushing each other. And even from my regard, if I'm just sitting and watching her do CrossFit, I enjoy doing that even more too as well. Just kind of like sitting back and watching. Like I would never do this, but it's actually really impressive what she's able to do with her body on a strength and cardio level in the CrossFit
Yeah.
stuff that she does. So, but no, we enjoy lifting. We don't get to do it all too much because of our schedules, but yeah, whenever we do, we end up having a really good time.
Does she train jiu-jitsu as well?
She did for a little bit, but she stopped. I honestly think I kind of scared her out of it because of my injuries. And she's like,
never mind.
Yeah. I hope she can find it back at some point, but it's hard right now, I think, with our schedules and stuff. But
How did you two meet?
we met at On It Gym in
cool.
Austin. Yeah, she was a coach there at the time, and I was desperately trying to find a gym that I enjoyed in Austin because it's kind of few and far between. But yeah, so she was a trainer there, and then I had met her previously, like a few months back, but I was in a different relationship at the time.
Yep.
And then this time around, we were both single, and then we basically just started talking and started working out together. And then I did her podcast, and then
Nice.
that was that.
Did she invite you on the podcast?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, and then I hit a one-liner where I kind of like hit on her subtly, but I guess
On
it
the
worked out.
podcast?
Kind of not really. Like it was a big step for me, but probably for most other guys, not that much.
That'll be cool to have that in the future. Like,
Yeah.
like just like this is when this is my first time I really hit on you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very cool.
It was a fun little thing for sure. I wasn't sure where it was going to end up, but yeah, we ended up, and then I asked her to marry me in the wrestling ring, and that was cool.
That
And
was
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. Thank
That
you.
was
I
awesome.
appreciate it.
So now I have I'm done with the you said quote. I have some other general questions, and I'm also going to go through a little bit of an overrated, underrated with you.
Okay.
You're a big jack dude.
Thank
You've
you.
deadlifted over 800 pounds. You've squatted over 700 pounds, but you're also ridiculously flexible.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What do you say to coaches who mock flexibility training and say it's unnecessary or even detrimental to strength?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest mental change for me, because I didn't used to come down on it like that, but there was some fear in the back of my head of like, I would like to be more flexible, but what if I start doing that and then, my squat and deadlift goes down or whatever? And just because it's what you hear online.
Yeah. So it's what we've been told.
Right, exactly. And so eventually, once I started doing that big jiu-jitsu competition or prepping for it, that's when I kind of let go. I was like, what? I don't really care what I squat or deadlift anymore. I'm just going to work on being a really good athlete. And then during that prep, did a lot of jiu-jitsu, obviously, but then I started working on a lot more of my mobility stuff. And a lot of it stemmed from what Ben Patrick was doing at the time, because I really like Ben Patrick because the stuff that he puts out is very, very easy to digest and very simple. And if you just stuck to the handful of things that he says, you'll be on a really good path to gain mobility and build some durability in your joints and build some athleticism. And it's really good stuff. Since then, I've added a handful of things, but that was a really good baseline for me to start, because before that, I was like, I'm not really sure how to get more flexible. Like it seems kind of complicated, like all those different stretches that you have to do, or the different. And then when Ben Patrick came around, I'm like, okay, wait, so you're just like lifting, but like stretching at the same time. Like, okay, so this is kind of like fun then. It's like lifting, right? And the biggest mental switch for me was understanding that flexibility training, or as I would rather call it, mobility training, is literally just strength training with maybe a slightly different intent, but the goal is to still get stronger.
Yes.
So if you're getting stronger in a bench press, you see your numbers go up. But if I'm getting stronger in like a middle split hold, then you might see your legs go out a little bit more, and you could maybe hold a little bit more weight in your hands as you do that. But ultimately, you're just getting stronger. And then I heard the concept of just equating tightness that you feel in your body to weakness. So if you're in the middle splits and at a certain point you start to feel really, really tight in your groin or your hips, yes, it's tightness, but ultimately it's just weakness.
It's weak.
And the answer to weakness is just getting stronger. So then to the point of like, what would I say to coaches that say that, it's detrimental to strength training? I'm like, well, how can strength training be detrimental to strength training? It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe if you're solely doing a flexibility routine with no strength training on top of it, in general, you might get weaker because you're not strength training how you should to express your strength better. But I don't know if that's a direct output of doing stretches. But when you're doing mobility and you're loading these movements and you're doing these isometric holds and you're contracting your muscles through these long ranges of motion, there's no reason why your other lifts should get weaker so long as you're continuing to progress those lifts.
Yep.
My deadlift is lower than it has been in a long time simply because I don't deadlift anymore, not
Right.
because I do more mobility.
Right.
But in a different respect, there's a lot of exercises that I'm stronger now in than I was when I was deadlifting 800 pounds. So it's kind of like perspective of what you deem strength to be. And sometimes in the normal world, we think of strength as how much can you bench or how much can you deadlift, because that's almost the most universally found language in regards to what strength is in a gym to your average person. But strength can be, what do your splits look like? How much weight can you hold in your splits? What's your cardio look like? Strength has so many different definitions. And so to me, I don't know if you know Mark Bell.
Of course, I've been on his podcast.
Okay,
I love
gotcha.
Mark.
That's what I thought. So Mark's a good friend of ours, and the way he says it is the most easy way to articulate it, which is strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to when it comes to really that. It's just, if you're getting stronger, it doesn't matter how you're getting stronger. If you're not getting weak, then you're set.
I think that the concept of, if you feel that tightness, thinking of it as weakness is one of the most important and powerful things people can realize. And there are times in which muscle tissue can be like stiff, legitimately, especially if there's scar tissue or something.
Yeah.
There can be real issues there. But for the vast majority of people, the thing that really made me reconsider the actual tightness, stiffness side of it was, if someone dies or when someone dies, before rigor mortis sets in, like, bro, they're loosey-goosey.
Right.
Like, you can move their limbs in ways that you could never do when they were alive. And nothing's changed except for now their brain isn't sending signals to their muscles, which means if their muscles were actually tight, then you wouldn't be able to move that person's muscles even after they die. It's a weakness thing, and your brain's saying, I'm scared to go here because I'm not strong enough to support myself here, and if I do, I'm going to get injured.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on. So it's I think the most accurate way to explain it is, you're weak, and your brain is scared to let you go to that range, which goes to if you don't use it, you lose it. So in order to build up the ability to use that range again, you have to show your brain, oh, not only am I safe, but I'm strong enough to be in this position.
There's a lot of people nowadays that are contradicting of that, Juju Mufu, obviously.
Oh, I love that guy, dude. I fucking love that guy.
Yeah. My friend Shane Hunt, who's big into powerlifting, he can do the splits and deadlift over 900 pounds.
What a beast.
So I think sometimes it just comes down to, are you willing to dedicate the time to get more mobile, as opposed to like, are you afraid that it's going to be a detriment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also the difference when people think about stretching or mobility work, which they'll often conflate mobility and flexibility, but even if we don't, like, I'm not nitpicky with it. When they think about stretching, they think of passive, just like, I'm just going to hold this for 3 minutes or even just 60 seconds, but they think of it as like nice and easy.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're describing, where, for example, the middle split's holding on to weight with this isometric hold, like, this is intense. And technically it's stretching, but it's really just strength training in a bigger range of motion.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And to our last point, communicating to your body, or your brain communicating to you that this is like a weakness that you're actively getting in multiple times a week or every single week, so you better get stronger, because if you don't, like you're just going to keep feeling this sensation. I just love the term communicating to your body, and like going back and forth like that. Your body's communicating to you that, oh, this is scary, but then you take charge and communicate it to it back. It's like, okay, but we're going to do this every single week, so you better adapt, because like, you don't have a choice.
That's exactly right. What do you think is the best martial art for self-defense?
So there's a lot of ways to answer this. So I came from a gym where I got my black belt that was very heavy on self-defense within the jiu-jitsu program, and jiu-jitsu has a few different sectors. You have like no gi for sport, you have gi, you have self-defense jiu-jitsu, like that camp. And so the thing is, when it comes to self-defense for jiu-jitsu, although there are valuable things to learn within it, as opposed to as speaking like specific scenarios, weapons, like what to do if this happens, and that can be valuable. The biggest downfall to like self-defense jiu-jitsu in general is simply just the fact that it's almost impossible to gain the reps necessary to make those techniques an instinct. Therefore, I say jiu-jitsu as a whole, more commonly sport, is probably the best for self-defense, because yes, you don't want fights to go to the ground, but also it gives you the ability to control if it does or not. And if it does, then you're more apt to be able to save yourself than the person attacking you. But because you're doing live jiu-jitsu rounds, hopefully multiple times a week, and if you're competing under pressure like that, you start to develop instincts on top of the technique that you're learning. So although it may not be perfect for street self-defense, I had a back and forth on Instagram the other day of this actually. And my main argument was I would rather take instincts over techniques any given day.
100%, yeah.
And so if there was a way to take the techniques that you learn in self-defense jiu-jitsu or self-defense and get these real-time reps, which it's hard pressed, because like what, you're going to have somebody try to kill you every day and then hope that you survive. And it's like, if you were able to replicate that and get thousands of reps doing that, then yeah, sure. Then it's actually a pretty strong point for the self-defense side, but it's not realistic. And although it's very valuable, the reality is most people don't get attacked anyways, at least not in the areas that I've trained in. Maybe in other areas different, but it rarely ever happens like anyways, besides like what you deem to be a possibility in real life. So for me, I always like tell students that come into jiu-jitsu for self-defense to just learn jiu-jitsu as a whole for what it is, and just almost fall in love separately than maybe what you entered it for, because it just takes away from your total experience, and you'll gain more for self-defense in the live training or live competition than you will just like looking for that one bit of like, if somebody has a knife and like
do this technique.
I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and I've taught both sides of the spectrum. So I feel like if anybody has an opinion on this, it's me. I don't think it's not valuable. It's much more valuable to have instincts on what to do. And so as far as martial arts go, I think jiu-jitsu is the best, because it's the best one to replicate the positions that you may encounter in a position like that, or be able to hold and control somebody to either get away, prevent them from harming you, or even you from harming them in a large degree. You talk about the videos that get put out online where somebody's going crazy and some jiu-jitsu person just wraps them up and holds them until the cops come and handcuff them, and in that case both people come out unscathed. So it's hard to pick one. A lot of people pick like Krav Maga, and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of experience in it. I think jiu-jitsu is ultimately probably the best, just in regards to what you've been able to see people apply real time in it. So, but that's just my opinion.
I agree. I think, especially looking at those videos online when in real time situations, one of the most amazing things about it is not only can someone who's relatively low in jiu-jitsu, like a late stage white belt, early stage blue belt, can take someone who's completely untrained and control them safely, so that the person doesn't get hurt, that the individual being attacked doesn't get hurt, but then also that person can communicate with others around and say, hey, I'm trained. Let me just like, don't hit us, don't pull us apart. I have this under control. Whereas in like a striking situation, which, God forbid you need it, but like you could kill someone. You punch someone in the face. I mean, they get knocked out, their head hits the ground. You don't want that person to die. You don't want them to have lasting damage. You don't want to hurt yourself or someone else. Obviously, if it push comes to shove, like you need to do what you need to do to protect you and your loved ones. But I agree completely that jiu-jitsu would be my number one choice from a self-defense perspective, especially, I mean, I think about my daughters all the time, but that's going to be the first thing that they get involved in for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the best thing to do personally. My friend did a video. He likes to ruffle feathers online, but he did a video where he's just like, high level sport jujitsu is better than self defense jujitsu for self defense.
He's right.
And then he pawned off to his cat. And he's like, "What do you think?" But yeah, no, I agree. And that was the biggest argument for a long time when it came to gi to no gi.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think ultimately, like, it's not worth thinking, or like, just it's not that deep, because again, like I said, the odds of you encountering that scenario are already really low, but the chances that you do, you'd rather just have the instincts built up to just be able to react to that
Yes.
situation, as opposed to try to remember what technique that you halfway drilled through like one time a week, like
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
Because to me, I think that's unrealistic too. And even to that point, a lot of those self defense techniques in jujitsu are very much similar to like katas and karate. It's like
Yeah.
step by step, move for move, and that paints an unrealistic atmosphere for it too. And to me, there's no perfect answer, so that's why I side with, just roll, roll and just build instincts.
Has body image and or emotional eating ever been an issue for you?
1000%. I just had an episode like 2 days ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Not, well, body image to the degree of like, okay, I should be looking more like this if I'm eating like this. A lot of them have actually come more recently since the mold poisoning has happened, because it causes so much inflammation that, I might be much leaner than what my body is even showing, just because my gut is unable to process the foods that I'm eating, regardless of how clean that they are. And so on certain days, I'll be very, very strong and feel good on my diet and be clicking on all cylinders. But if something happens, like say in the gym, just feeling terrible, tired, I feel borderline sick, and then I look in the mirror, I'm not looking at like how I do or whatever, then like I'm just like, screw it, dude, I'm just gonna eat like cookies or whatever. Yeah. And yeah, just cookies or Jack in the Box orders or like whatever. And this is coming from somebody who legitimately 98% of the time I'm like on point, you know what I mean? But like if emotionally like it's just not a good day, then like, yeah, 100% I've had days where eating poorly to make up for emotionally what I'm feeling is an option that I resort to. Not that I should, but I have.
Do you struggle, like, let's say you have one of these moments where you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna have cookies, Jack in the Box, whatever. How long does that last? Is that meal and then done and you're back on track the next day? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, usually just like that singular meal or that night, or if I've been going hard for a month or two or whatever, I might have like a weekend where I just take off entirely. And sometimes it is planned, actually. Like this last month of July was really heavy wrestling, so I was making sure that my physique was looking as good as possible for the various things I was doing. And then I had a week off at the end of the month, so then I took 2 days to just like eat sushi and steak or whatever.
Which are also super, just probably more than you should have.
Yeah, just
but like
much
great
more
quality
than
food.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the days like a couple days ago where I was just like, dude, I can barely squat anything. I feel like crap. Like I'm getting weaker. My physique looks terrible. Like all these different like intrusive thoughts go on. I'm just like, you know what? Screw this. Just eat cookies and
What kind of
burgers, and
cookies?
then, it's really bad, but I went to Crumble to get like,
They're great.
If there's a cinnamon option, that's usually what I go for there, because that's like my advice. Anything like cinnamon.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I was like, I haven't had Jack in the Box since like Arizona, so fuck this. Just get Jack in the Box.
You ever have Cinnabons?
Oh yeah, those are my favorite thing back home, and I can't really find one out here that's not a Schultz's or whatever.
Yeah.
Where it's like been sitting there for hours.
Yeah.
But back home, like at the mall, it'd just be Cinnabon, and then like you go get them hot, and it's like the best thing in the
They're
world.
huge.
Yeah.
Those things are fucking huge.
Yeah, they're great. That was the majority of my childhood. So yeah.
But it's I think what's important is, we've spent almost like 2 hours talking, and you sound so put together and so intelligent, and like you've got it all figured out. And it's also really good to know, it's like, oh no, you struggle with this stuff too. And so you allow yourself to have these moments, and then you get right back on track, and that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I think, and that's the biggest thing, is just in the past, I used to allow those moments to be a downward spiral to more and more foods or more justifications to be off track. Whereas nowadays I see it as like, okay, Sometimes it's worth fighting and sticking to whatever I'm dedicating myself towards, and more often than not, I know that's the right answer. But sometimes, though, if you deem a sort of relaxing moment such as that to try to ease the pain off things, food is probably better than drugs in that moment. You know what I mean? Not that I do drugs, but like. But also
Not that I do those.
Yeah, not that I do drugs, but like also like some people do, and
Yeah,
if you had to pick food over drugs, I'd probably just pick food. But
or even food over alcohol or something.
yeah, something like that, right? So for me, food's always been that ever since I was little, which is why I got up to 270 pounds at one point. I had to lose.
Did you really?
Yeah. At the end of my first powerlifting stint when I was 20, I got up to 270, and then I went back down to 190.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so I got it pretty big because of habits like that.
Yeah.
And I still have that guy in me. Like he's still there.
He never leaves. Like he's always there.
He's like in a cage or whatever. But nowadays, like if it happens, it's like a singular night or a singular day, and then I know that almost kind of like resets me to get back on track in the following days or whatever. With what I'm pursuing now with pro wrestling, I know that looking and performing good pretty much at any given time is my first priority. So I know that days like that are few and far between. So sometimes if I feel like really, really down and I look at my schedule, I'm like, okay, I don't have a match for another week and a half. I know I can get this water weight off in 4 days or whatever. It's like, it's fine. Just do it or whatever, that type of thing, just to maintain a little bit of balance and just to try to like be human in the scenario. I guess as much as I want to be like this Russian robot that never like breaks character, I had a bodybuilding coach like that. My last bodybuilding show, he's like one of the craziest athletes I've ever met in my life, but like just the most regimented on his diet. Like cheating on his diet is like going up a few calories of the same foods, but not like eating
just
like
more chicken breast.
Yeah,
and rice.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like he was the craziest, like in a good way, person I've ever met. And sometimes like I wish that I was him. But then I've never perfectly mastered that skill. So when days like that come up, then depending upon what the week looks like following, I might justify it or whatever. But yeah,
Sometimes it's good to not be a robot.
Yeah.
It's good to enjoy yourself a
Yeah,
little bit,
totally.
just as long as you don't guilt yourself for it, shame yourself for it, and you get back on track. I mean, we're here for a very short time, and that's like in the best case scenario is like
yeah, totally.
to live a long life is still very short, and like if you can't enjoy a Cinnabon,
I know,
what are you doing, man?
dude. I know. I feel bad for people that never had that. To be honest, personally.
I've got a list of overrated, underrated before
Awesome.
before I have a couple more questions at the end.
Heck yeah.
Overrated or underrated? Smith machine.
I think it depends upon what community we're in as you ask that question. The initial response to me is underrated.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I think there's like a community where they rely on it so much to where it's like overrated too. I like it because generally, historically, I've relied much more on free weights and stuff like that for my training. But more recently, the Smith machine has been a really good way to, and you actually showed me one of your ideas that I've been utilizing more recently, but it's a really good way to enhance mobility training because of the stable environment that it creates. So you can do a lot of things with it. But even from just a pure hypertrophy scale, I never really gave it the credit that it deserves in regards to how stable that it is. So if you're performing a bench press or a row or a squat or whatever you're doing, the added benefit of just the extra stability of the machine to allow yourself to potentially get more hypertrophy from it.
Yeah.
So I think it's underrated in that sense. I just think that there are maybe some people that over rely on it and miss what you could be gaining on the other side of it too.
Of course.
But I would say overall probably underrated.
I think
because it has a bad stigma to it.
I think in the our end of the industry, which is relatively small, like the science-based industry, if you want, Will, I think it's underrated.
Yeah, I like that.
In the general population of people who are maybe spend maybe too much time on machines and not enough time with the free weights and more athletic based stuff, I would say it's overrated for them. But in our end, I would say it's underrated, especially because it gets so much hate.
Yeah.
People hate on it, and they'll say something like, well, it's on a fixed range of motion. I'm like, so is literally every fucking machine. Like, I'm not going to use that. It's on a fixed range of motion. Then they go to the hack squat. I'm like, what the fuck is that, dude?
Right.
Like, you're doing, like, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing at the end of the day. I don't know why. I think it just came from like gym bros that like had tried to bench on it, and then like people got mad that they like tried to claim a new max, and then just like build a bad stigma from that. You
That's
know
a
what I mean?
Smith machine max, and it's not a
Yeah,
barbell max.
it's not the same thing, bro. To that point, the Jefferson curl that you do on it,
Yeah.
I like it really quite a bit, because when I've done a Jefferson curl on other things, sometimes it's been hard to stabilize at the very bottom when I'm really trying to push it.
Yeah, get that range.
But with the Smith machine, I can just let it go down, and the balance is there, and so the hamstrings in and of itself are actually pushed to a new degree, I feel like, with it.
I got that from Alec Blennis.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then I've recently, and I'm actually gonna do it later today. I've been doing it split stance. So
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh my gosh, dude, split stance, Zercher, Smith machine, RDL. It's a mouthful.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
holy shit, the front hamstring.
Heck yeah.
Oh my gosh, highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. That's awesome.
Okay, overrated or underrated weighted vests?
Well, there's a while there where it kind of became trendy because of rucking.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I have a rating for it, because I haven't used them all too much, especially not for that. But if I have, it's been for more like calisthenic based
Oh yeah,
stuff.
cool. I love that.
I don't know if I might go like prop. I'm interested to hear your take, but maybe like properly rated for me, because I like the benefit of having it for like calisthenic stuff.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if the rucking trend is everything that maybe people think it is.
What do you mean by that?
As opposed to rucking alone, like putting the vest on, is it doing X amount more than just walking, or any other like cardiovascular thing that you could do? I'm not sure.
Yep.
It's almost like the same category as like ice baths in regards to, is it beneficial? Probably. Is it as beneficial as what the alternative is to what people are putting it as? I'm not really sure. I don't have any research to back that up.
So I wouldn't say it's the same category as ice baths. And obviously I'm biased because I fucking hate ice baths.
Me too.
With like a passion.
Yeah.
I fucking hate them. And not to mention, like, there have been people who've died doing them because they have unknown cardiovascular or cardiac issues. And anyway, I think that the weight vests, they definitely have some benefit depending on the individual. Like, for example, if someone's 400 pounds, you don't need to put on a fucking weight vest. Like, you've got it built in. You're good. But I think the major benefit, especially among people who just want to improve their health and fitness, is that it can allow you to reach a higher level, like a zone, for example, in your cardio more quickly.
Okay.
So one of the common issues that I see among people who want to get into zone 2 or zone 3, but they struggle to do that, they'll be doing this like weird, like awkward walk, run,
I get what you're
jog,
saying,
like, hey, I feel like I don't want to go too hard. But if you put the weight vest on, immediately you can get into zone 2 a little bit more quickly and increase the intensity of your cardio without having that like awkward walk, run, jog type thing going on. So I love it for that personally. I think that they're overrated for strength. People are like, I'm strength training with my weighted vest. No, you're not. That's not strength training. I would say it's cardiovascular, and I use it for calisthenics as well. I love it for like explosive push-ups, explosive pull-ups, anything like that. I love it for that stuff. So yeah, I think there's nuance to it, but I when you said it's like ice baths, I was like, no, dude, ice baths always. I didn't say they always suck. You know what I hate about people with ice baths is when they say it builds mental toughness. I'm like, no, it doesn't. That definitely, because in order to, number one, I mean, we could even really dive deep in the research on mental toughness, but if we're going to say it improves something, you have to have objective data showing that. And in terms of building mental toughness, we have zero showing you that builds mental toughness. And like most people who are doing ice baths, they love doing the ice bath. So it's not building mental toughness because you fucking love doing it.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about doing something because it's more difficult, then it's going to be something that like you have to like generally you don't like doing it.
Yeah.
But the weight vest, I feel like without question there are definitive benefits to it, even though I think many people overplay them, and often people think that it does more than it's advertised as.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of more so what I meant in regards to just. Definitely became trendy. So with the trends, then I think people jump into it without even covering their bases of like, were you even exercising or walking before that, or like
Yeah.
is throwing a vest on a sensible jump with where you were, or are you just seeing like rucking as this thing online, so it's like the solution to your weight loss or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where it like fell into the category of ice bath. I too would rather ruck than ice bath for sure. But that's more so what I meant. And I also don't have a lot like any experience with it at all, so I'm kind of talking blind here. But that's like
fine.
that's kind of what it comes off initially before you would express that stuff. But
That's the cool thing about overrated and underrated. You don't need any experience whatsoever. You could just give your opinion.
That's true. Yeah.
Overrated or underrated training for the splits. And you say whatever you believe. Don't, because I know you know what I'm going to say. But
So I would have to say underrated simply because so many people don't do it like at all.
Yeah.
And it's hard to justify to other people why it would be like worth it to them to even like venture to do that, because I think people think of training for the splits. It's like, okay, well, it's a cool party trick, but like what do I actually like need it for? I think that's a valid argument. But I think in the pursuit of building your splits, then you'll start to notice the increase of strength or hip mobility or what that allows farther, better access to in your day-to-day life because you're training that. So although the split itself is cool, it's like a cool little party trick or whatever, as you're building the muscles necessary to obtain that position, you'll probably notice some benefit in your day-to-day life, just because like you're going to have to hit your hips, your groin, and all these different muscles that are relative to getting there in the first place. So I would say generally underrated, and not to say that the splits are the only way to work your hips, but it's a very like straightforward, like, okay, like if you become strong at splits, you'll probably notice a fair amount of improvement in your hips if you deem hips to be a weakness of yours.
I agree. I also think training for the splits is one of the best ways to help build the strength and resiliency to minimize injury risk, especially in the knees.
You're right. Yeah.
Like the amount of strength you build in your adductors and in your hips as well to, I think, help stabilize your knee, and also in when you're in a difficult position, especially like a position that when people slip, for example, and their leg gets almost pulled out from underneath them, that's oftentimes when you see whether it's an adductor strain or a medial knee issue. I think that's one, training properly for the middle splits especially is one of the best things you can do for that. But then for the front splits, whether it's the hip flexor length that comes with it, also the end range glute strength that comes with it, you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it helps prevent injuries down the road.
I think so too. And that's a great point. Like in particular with my meniscus injury, adductor strength is completely relative. And that's one of the biggest things that I try to prioritize up front is building up the adductors because of the meniscus here on the inside. So yeah, I agree.
Overrated or underrated plyometrics?
I would say generally underrated for your average person. And it kind of goes back to the idea that we talked about earlier of if you lose it, if you don't use it, you lose it type of thing.
Yeah.
And so this is generally a skill that most kids do when they're younger to some degree, but definitely like at a certain age, probably like after high school, most people just never do again for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
And it kind of the same thing as the splits. It's like you don't need to necessarily do the splits for any given reason in your day-to-day life or whatever, but being able to do them means that your life is probably better because of XYZ reason. And to me, plyometric training to some microdose degree will allow that same type of effect to happen. It's like, I don't need you to run a mile, but could you? Or I don't need you to jump onto this box, or could you? You know, that type of thing.
Yep.
I think that in general is a net positive.
Yeah, I think I've seen over the last probably 2 or 3 years a number of videos of adults who are like, hey, I'm just going to race someone out of nowhere. In their 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s. And in all of these videos, never mind someone falling, like ripping a hamstring off the bone, or like having like their lower, like I think Kevin Hart like fucked up his
really?
and it's often, and I think Kevin Hart actually did sprint prior to that, but a lot of people who have just not done any of it, and all of a sudden like, I'm going to try this, and it's like devastating, catastrophic injuries.
Right.
And then thinking about like, if God forbid you actually do need it in a real life situation, like it's really important to have that, to have at least have that available to you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, hell, that's about as self-defense as self-defense jiu-jitsu
Run
is.
away.
Yeah, just being able to run away. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And like do that for as long as you need to, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw a video not too long ago. I'm sure you saw it, but this one lady that clearly wasn't in good shape had her kid in a stroller or whatever, and she took her eye off of the
It
stroller.
was one of the scariest videos I've ever seen.
Okay, you saw it.
Super
Yeah.
scary and really sad.
Yeah, it's really,
I felt horrible for that woman. I
yeah.
felt really, really
Yeah.
bad for her.
Yeah, and to that point, it's like that's although simple is an example of what we're talking about here. It's just
Yeah.
you know, if this person kept up with that, that would have been a much less of a problem. So
It sucks because, I mean, I couldn't imagine being that woman and just knowing that video is now going viral.
Yeah.
And like you're just getting dragged through the fucking dirt by people who don't know you, and also knowing, like, thank God someone came to save your kid.
Yeah, literally.
Because like knowing that like that it could have ended in the worst catastrophe ever of the stroller going into the middle of the road and getting slammed by a car. But yeah, that if that video didn't put things in perspective for people, I don't know what will. Because that's
Yeah.
I also think people don't know. I don't think people really understand objectively where they are physically. Most people don't. I think many people, like, we see this all the time, especially in the fighting world, where like, oh, I just see red and like,
Yeah.
like I don't need to train this. Like,
Right.
I'll just do it. And people are like, oh, like if the time comes, like I'll be able to do it. And they don't realize like what it actually takes to have a certain level of fitness. And like, God forbid you're in one of these situations. And again, very rare, but like, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
Type of a thing. And yeah, that video was horrifying, and for many reasons. And really, I don't know if there's been a video that's really tugged at my heartstrings like that in a really long
that one,
time.
yeah.
You know, I just like that would
Yeah.
be horrible to be that
Yeah.
and know like that video going viral to millions and millions of people. Like, I feel really bad for that woman.
Yeah, that is terrible. I hope that at least the positive was it made people hopefully
Start
realize,
training.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully at least. Yeah,
Okay, I have 3 more questions.
beautiful.
When you're looking at, I mean, you've been training for a long time. When you're looking at your entire life of training for your own workouts, what was your favorite period in your own workouts?
So far, I'd probably say there's a time like right before my first knee injury where I felt like I was hitting all-time highs on mobility, jiu-jitsu, strength, and even physique for that matter. I was like 25, 26, like right before my first major knee injury. Best shape I've ever been in. I was deadlifting 740 at like 200 pounds, hitting the splits my first time, hitting body weight Nordic curls, right?
That's badass.
Thank you.
That's
I appreciate
badass.
it. And then also at the same time, being able to compete and beat a lot of the top level black belts that I was training with for a long time that were once much better than I. So that was probably like my peak of training from the standpoint of like I felt like I was just at just the best athlete I'd ever been. I wasn't sacrificing strength for mobility, but mobility was rising up. Yeah. There's points before that where I was really heavy on strength or really heavy on physique, but never did I feel like everything was hitting all cylinders. Since then, I'll be honest, it's been kind of sad because I've been feeling like I've been working really, really hard to get back to that feeling, and I felt a little stints of it here and there, but I've never fully gotten back there. If it's not the 2 knee injuries, then it's like this mold thing. So there's a part of me that's hoping like 29, 30, man, we're gonna get back to it, because you know I wonder where I would be if it wasn't for those 2 knee injuries or the mold poisoning, if my athletic peak would have extended itself a little bit longer, or am I able to get back to an athletic peak at some point here in the next hopefully 6 months or so, especially with me trying to excel in pro wrestling. That's very vital. But you know, even then, I'm grateful that those years leading up to this point has built up such a high base for me that even like 80% of where I feel like I once was is still 80% better than the remainder of the field. So I'm very confident in saying that. But ultimately, like for me, I would love to get back to a point to where I feel like all those things are hitting all cylinders.
I think you will.
Thank you.
Just for whatever it's worth. And that's not me just like blowing smoke. I mean it. I know a lot of people, when they get to 30, that's when it starts going downhill. And like, there are definitely new challenges. And listen, I'm only 34. Like, I don't know, what the fuck do I know? But I can say for me personally, having been, elite powerlifter and competitor in numerous different sports, like I am now, I think, in the best shape I've ever been in, like in terms of athleticism since probably high school,
That's
and
awesome. Okay.
actually even better because I'm infinitely stronger than when I was
Right.
in high school, infinitely stronger. So yeah, I think probably honestly the best athletic performance overall I've ever been in at 34. I've got two girls, I run multiple businesses, and like you dedicate way more time than I do. I think you're gonna blow past what you've been, and I think this, like, when you look back on your training career, this will like be barely a blip on the radar. Like you will probably barely remember this time period. You know how, like,
Yeah.
if you
Thank
look
you.
back on your life, there are whole years where you're like, maybe you have a couple memories from that whole year, like maybe.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, I think this will be one of those things where like this will be such a flash.
Yeah.
And like it within a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to be at an all-time peak, and you're going to be excelling in ways that you can't even imagine. So I have no
Thank you,
doubt
man.
about it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course,
Thank you.
brother.
I hear that too. A lot of people, like my fiance is an example. She's 32, and she's hitting peaks, and
Yeah.
she's been doing quite well in her 30s. So I know it's possible. I think I get in the mindset sometimes where you hear about, say, like professional athletes, and
Yeah.
this is from our conversation earlier, but football players especially, like, oh, so and so, he's 29 or he's 28, so he's about to hit 30 and blah 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 and all this stuff. Is like, damn, dude, I haven't even started my career and I'm about to hit 32. So I'm like, damn, did I miss my point or
Is that
whatever?
the
But
player or the announcer?
the announcer,
Fuck
yeah,
the announcers.
yeah, fuck the announcer,
Fuck the announcers, dude. It's always the critics. It's always
right?
it's not the man in the arena. It's always the person outside who's commentating. They've always got some bullshit to say.
Yeah,
Fuck them.
yeah, that's a good point.
Fuck them, dude. Like, I hate that shit.
Yeah, it is quite annoying. And I know, like, there are those examples where people have hit a certain age, but it could have been for any other reason besides their
Yes.
age, and then, but yeah, it's just like stuff like that. I think about, like, damn. But ultimately, I have faith in what you're saying too. I know I can get back. So just be time.
100%.
Yeah.
Not a
Thank you.
doubt in my mind.
Thank you. I
Fuck the
appreciate
announcers. Don't listen to them.
that. I won't.
I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, but I'm interested. What are you scared of?
So for the longest time, it's funny. I actually thought about this on the way here. For the longest time,
Did you know I was going to ask you this one?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I just like thought about it on the drive up, just like, for the longest time, my answer would have been failure.
Okay.
But nowadays, the way I perceive things, and I've listened to enough mentors to understand that failure should really be something that you search, and not be afraid of, and not be afraid to go out and try things, knowing that the chances of you failing are higher. Especially in the professional wrestling business, you hear that a lot. Like, don't be afraid to go out and fail. And, so for me, I have evolved my answer to more so just, I think my biggest fear is ultimately falling short of where I deem my own potential to be, which is why I work very, very hard to exceed whatever bar I have set for my potential. But ultimately, yeah, like they're like, especially in the last couple knee injuries or this mold thing, where I feel like, damn, am I like missing my window or to get to my potential or show my potential or these different things, and that in and of itself, it's elicits a feeling of fear of not doing the things that I've set out to do, or what I deem my purpose to be, or what I want to live out to do for others. That's really what definitely makes me feel fear, but ultimately drives me to get as far away from that feeling as possible.
And what are you excited about?
I'm ultimately excited about being able to do what I do now as a professional wrestler, being able to, say, impact the lives of the kids that go, being able to be a superhero type figure to them in the way that my childhood hero Goldberg was a superhero figure to me as a kid. I've been around wrestling long enough now to be able to do that to a good handful of kids in a few different states. And that feeling in and of itself is something that you could never like put a price on. I thought of a few different things as I drove up here. I thought of, like, if money wasn't a variable, like, what would I be doing? I said I'd be lifting and I'd be wrestling. And that was like my first thought. And I'm like, good. That's a reminder that I'm doing the right thing. And so for me, I've said this on a bunch of podcasts, and I'll add this to the list. The the reason why I'm doing professional wrestling, or at least starting in this, is so I can be a superhero to millions of kids. That's what I wholeheartedly believe is my life purpose, because I was exposed to somebody like Goldberg at a young age, and he inspired me to do a bunch of different things leading up to the point that I'm at now. And now that I'm in a position to essentially pay it forward and do something for the next generation, I just want to be able to impact as many kids and less fortunate as I can possible as I pursue this career of professional wrestling. Professional wrestling to me is the first thing that I've done athletically in my life that hasn't been about what I can achieve from it. I know that I have to achieve a lot to ultimately do what I want to do with it, but with jiu-jitsu is like, okay, I want to qualify for ADCC. For powerlifting, I want to do this world record. For bodybuilding, I want to get my pro card. Wrestling before that, I want to win state. This time around, like I don't care if I'm WWE champion or the comedy guy or the guy that's the first match out there. As long as I'm adding to that list of kids that deem me to be somebody they want to be like, then that's really all I care about. So I forgot what even was the question that led to this, but fear wise, yeah, I fear falling short of that. But I live my life out to accomplish that singular thing.
I love that.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing, man.
I appreciate it.
Where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Coach Jimmy House, YouTube Jimmy House, or my website is jimmyhouse.com.
We got to get you making more content, though.
I know.
We got to get you making. We'll talk about that. We got to get you making more content.
I need to, man. I need to. I'm working on it, but thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a big fan of yours. Thank you for all you do for our community. And yeah, it's just an honor to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure you give Jimmy a follow on all of his platforms. Go bug him. Make sure he starts making more content. We need more of his content available. Please leave a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon.